Okay, folks, here we go.
Guys, here we go. Let's have a good show.
One B, stand by. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
Take it.
take it at midfield.
Okay,
Just
go
right
opposite
now.
up
Go to
there.
camera
Well,
3.
can
3.
you
Go to the
Thank
perfect,
you.
just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first. Okay.
Take it.
Go right now. Go to camera 3. Go. Yep.
Let's go.
Yeah, go to the perfect, just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q, Sophie.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
Yeah, go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. Wait for it. 2.5.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand by.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
All right, here we go. I see.
Everything's running now.
Yep, we
Right
got 3
on.
green lights, so we are good to go now. So anyway, let's start all over again. Apologies, guys, for the technical issues, but 27th of December, last show of the year. Happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club Friday night. Love to have you guys on. Love to kick off our weekend with you. And again, my co-host Ricky. What's going on, Ricky?
Happy hour, everybody, from San Francisco. Lovely San Francisco. Let me tell you, our weather is absolutely beautiful out here. Guys, sorry for the little interruption on the show start, but we do have a great show lined up for you guys. So, like Willie said, thank you for starting your weekend with us. The happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. We truly appreciate you guys being with us. Today we got quite the show. We had quite the week with our president-elect, having a few things to say about our beloved Canal. So let's just jump right into it, Willie. But before
Yeah.
we do that, of course, let's get our toast in to all our viewers,
Absolutely.
all you Zonians out there, and all you Panamanians out there. We are
Salud.
brothers, and this is what this show is all about.
Yeah,
Salud.
absolutely. Happy hour and salute. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm drinking iced tea
Both
tonight.
of us.
But yeah, I had to
We're
come home
both
from
on
work
water,
early, and
man.
I had to take a nap, man. Otherwise, I said I'm not gonna be all drowsy for the show. So, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, the show must go on, and we do this every Friday night. Get together, reminisce about growing up in the Canal Zone. It is a wonderful place. Of course, as Ricky just hinted. This week in particular, a lot of interesting things have gone on, especially with our president-elect Donald Trump and his comments about the Panama Canal. So obviously the show is going to revolve around that, but we've got a couple other things that we're going to do that we take care of prior to that. Just some fun things that we like to do involving, our Canal Zone memories and that. But a lot of new people on the show tonight. So welcome everybody if you're on the show, especially on YouTube. Sorry about the mishap there, but make sure you spread the word, share and like the channel, and make you subscribe. Okay, that helps get that algorithm up so that we can get more subscribers on and more people being informed. A lot of Zonians that aren't in on social media, but everybody's on YouTube. So if the algorithm starts to go up, a lot of them will start looking at more canals on things and spot our show. But nonetheless, yeah, it is going to be quite a show. There's
Look at the numbers. We have quite the house tonight. So
yeah,
right
no,
on, guys.
it's and it's the elephant in the room that there's no avoiding it. But before we proceed, and we'll of course say some hellos, Dave, and we're gonna talk about your birthday later on today. Happy birthday as
Birthday
well,
big.
and
Sir.
Rich, good to see you on here as well. Love having you guys on. Throw in your comments, guys. This is an open chat forum for us. But I do want to preface something, and I don't normally do this, but tonight's show, one of the reasons we're doing the show is for everything that's been in the news. But the truth of the matter is, it's been something that's been chattering in all the social media sites, okay, everywhere. As soon as that came out, I have received hundreds of messages from people. Hey, are you going to talk about it on the show? Hey, what's your opinion? And so I
Yes.
know it's something that's on a lot of people's minds, and there are some strong opinions. Okay, what I don't want, guys, and this is something that I've made a push from day one of this show, is I don't want to make the show political, right? Politics is very divisive. Politics can get really ugly, and so we don't want to do that. We we want to make this show a place where you can share your opinions, and mostly this show is about reminiscing about living in the zone, right? The memories we had there, but things obviously have taken a direction here because of what was said, and again, there's a lot of strong feelings. But the one thing I just urge anybody, if you're going to comment, and please do, just be friendly and respect everybody's opinions, because this isn't a show about politics. This isn't a show about I hate this person, I hate that person, and whatnot. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
let's just have
yeah,
fun and be
yeah,
informed, because a lot of people do want to know. I the Christmas holidays were only 2 days away, so let's be harmonious
yeah,
there. But
yeah.
funny thing, Ricky, when I had my family over on Christmas Day, and I walk in the living room at one point, and my sister-in-law says, "Hey, if we get the Canal Zone back, are you moving down there?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!" But then my brother's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Scott, it's not gonna happen, man.
Wait, wait, wait.
It is what it is."
Before we get going, I got dibs on the old Prado house.
Yeah, there you go. Right? Yeah, exactly. We're doing well. I'm limited on my choices now, because my houses, two of them on Amador Road and on Bougainvillea, right there off of
Yeah,
Amador,
yeah, yeah. We're
are
just
gone.
gonna come in, kick everybody out, or take our houses back and
Well,
get
my
right back
houses
to
aren't
work.
there anymore. There's a highway
Hey,
where my
Lure,
house
you still
was.
played center, I hope, because you were one heck of a center for me at what was our year 81. We have the General Son on with us tonight.
Oh, right on.
Joseph Lure. Yes,
Very cool.
yes, we have a
Very cool.
General Son. Right on.
Yeah, well, let's say hello to some people here, since we're going to be getting a lot of them on, and we don't want to
Let's
fall
start it. Let's get
behind. So,
started.
Dave, good to see you on here.
Mr. Dave Millard, yes, an icon in the Canal Zone.
Okay, BHS class of '87, right on. Good to see you on here.
87. You must know my little brother Roberto Royo.
Yeah, probably. Canal needs some rain, and everything would be fine. Well, yeah, we're going in the dry season now, so we're not going to get a whole lot of rain now. But
No,
they
no, no.
actually,
Their numbers were high. Their numbers were up there, so they're good.
I
They're
did
good.
see something where some water was spilling over some of the lock chambers. Where, I mean, they just had so much water on it. I don't know.
Yeah, they're good on the water. They're good on the water.
But we're going in the dry season, so we know that's going to
And
change
we
now.
have a captain tonight too, so he can.
Yeah,
Hey, Chris.
He'll set
Always
the
good
record
to see
straight.
Chris.
We have
That's what
another
he's-
captain here, a former F-15 pilot and a Boeing 767 pilot coming in from Boston. Right on.
Yes,
Good to have you on.
yes. We got the Zonians tonight. Talk some
There's
Canal
your
Zone.
football right on. Viewing for the first show.
Yes.
Awesome. Listen, a lot of first-time viewers. Thank you so much. Again, guys, hit the subscribe button on YouTube and the notifications. We're on every Friday night, 8 p.m. We try to be. The system has some quirks.
No, we always are, but
Still looking for a producer. If somebody can help us out, I run all the graphics and all the other stuff behind the scenes while I'm trying to run the show. I could use some help there, but if you could please, Cynthia Thomas from New Orleans, right on. There you go. From the
the
what do you call it?
Talkermans are on as well. Wow, man, we got a good house. Let's get
Clearwater in
into
the
it,
house,
Willie.
right on. Franceville. Yep. So listen. Again, guys, keep it fun, keep it enjoyable, but we do have some strong opinions. This is about a place that a lot of us hold near and dear, obviously, and a lot of us were very sad when it ended, right? And so we do have some real strong feelings about it, but let's be realistic. Let's stay grounded. I know when everybody heard that news, probably the first thing was, heck yeah, man, right on. But truth is,
We all got started with dibs on our homes.
yeah, right. You're exactly thinking. Like I said, I lived on Amador Road at one point. That house is gone. The one on Bougainvillea, which is right off of Amador Road, that house is
Oh,
gone.
God.
That's
We're
on a
kidding,
highway.
guys out there. We're
So-
definitely kidding. We're not. We both Willie and I know that this is something that is just like this, guys. So let's just get right into it.
Yeah. But
Willie and I were looking beyond the rhetoric. That's what this show's about. Looking.
it is, and set the
beyond
record
rhetoric.
straight, because a lot of comments were thrown out there. There was a lot of chatter, and like Ricky says, let's move beyond the rhetoric, and that's a great way of putting it, because rhetoric can get ugly, and everybody becomes an expert, and let's just let's figure this stuff out. But nonetheless, before we do all that stuff, let's go through our show like we normally do, right? We have a lot of other things that we like to talk about here. This is a show about the zone, but we like to throw a Panama component in there, and talk about some things that are going on in Panama, more current, outside of what the obvious elephant in the room is, which is the Trump comments. But so we do have a segment that we put on here where we like to talk about these things, almost like the gossip, which in Panama was called what, Ricky?
El bochinche.
El
And I
bochinche. So
am
let's
el
just go ahead and cue everybody's
bochinchero.
new favorite song on the show, El bochinche.
El bochinche, 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 el
right. Everybody starts dancing when you hear that song. Then
I love
you
that
get
song.
off.
I do. Well,
Yeah,
hello everybody to our weekly segment of El Bochinche, where we try to bring you all the latest of what's going on in the both the Canal Zone and in the U.S. But because today's so special, we're going to take you guys back to 1977.
nice.
Why? Because that was the year they were doing all the work to get these treaties signed, agreed on, and signed. So,
Hmm.
what was happening in the Canal Zone that during that year? One thing that we see in our research on the spillway, which we're going to go from August 19th through September 30th of 1977. So one thing guys can tell you what was happening at the time. There was a lot of everything on the spillways had to do with the treaties, right? Preparing all the residents on what to expect. So there was a lot of questions asked. The governor at the time, Governor Parfit, he also had a lot of get-togethers with the employees to give everybody a rundown on the new treaties. Now, one of the things I can tell you about the new treaties that our canal employees did get during that time, guys, was any U.S. employee working for the canal at the time did not have to pay taxes. So that was
Yes.
one very good thing they got. The second thing they got was, Gorgas and Cocosolo went over to the military. So all the Canal Zone residents got to use military hospitals.
And
And
real
of
quick,
course,
Ricky, this information, guys, the Panama Canal Museum collection is an amazing place to find anything Canal Zone. There's a ton of artifacts there. It's actually located at the University of Florida in Gainesville, so they have an actual physical museum where you can go and look at a lot of things there. But online, they have an incredible digital collection. The link I have on here is actually a direct link to their Spillway collection, and you can look up all the
correct.
Spillway issues. They're fully digitized in high resolution. It's really cool to go back and see some of the stuff that we grew up looking at, reading, and seeing what was going on in our communities, man. Even the TV schedules, right? The movies, what was going
Yeah.
on during certain times. It's kind of fun. And we actually do on occasion go back and do a spillway issue where we'll pull it up and share it on the screen and kind of revisit some stuff that was going on there. But that's the link
Yeah.
there on the screen, guys. So check it out when you get a chance and get involved with the museum collection. It's $26 a year, guys, to help them preserve that legacy that when we're long gone, it'll still be there for other generations to enjoy, like our show, of course.
Yeah,
So
and right, and just about everything we do on this show, including our historian, is research from that site. So, guys, during in August, the August 19th episode of that newspaper, put Panama was at the center of attention in the world at that point,
of
just like it
course,
is today. Yeah, all the newsmen were there covering the isthmus and because this was the final round when they were getting together in Panama to finalize the deal. Uh, so that's what was going on in August, and then early September, right before the school season, the school year started, there was a lot going on in the summer. One of the things that we had going on there was the Rainbow Girls. I don't know if you guys remember the Rainbow Girls, but that's
yeah, my
something
sister
new
did
that
that.
I just recently found out
Yeah,
about.
my sister did
My
that.
sisters were never part of the Rainbow Girls, but the Atlantic side had a big. There was a lot of people there, and they had a big spaghetti dinner that big weekend of the final rounds of the canal
Okay.
negotiations at the Elks Bohio. So, any of you guys that participated in that, uh, you can tell us about it. But the Rainbow Girls, like, was that like the Boy Scouts or something like that? What was the Rainbow
I
Girls?
think it was something like a brownies kind of thing. Just somebody else
Yeah,
wanted to start their own group. I guess I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe if you didn't
The
get
Am-
picked on the brownies, yeah, it
yeah,
was like a draft.
got it. The American Legion, they had this thing called the Ladies Auxiliary.
Mhm.
They also were holding an annual arts and craft bazaar, so that was something big going on at the
Right
yacht
on.
club. Right, and then also during that time, right before school started, there was motocross was huge now in the Canal Zone,
Yeah, certainly.
and they had this 2-day event, which they normally had a 1-day event, right, Sundays. But this was like a
Right.
big Canal Zone Atlantic side against Pacific side thing, because on a Saturday they had the race in Gatun, and then
Okay.
on Sunday in Miraflores, and this is when Costa Rica If you remember Jerry talking about that, this is when Costa Rica was coming into a participate in our races.
Yeah, and for
So
those of you guys that
a
are
lot.
joining us new, Jerry has joined us a couple of times on the show. First time he joined us was back in April or May, and talked about his history because Jerry obviously is a very accomplished writer and had a lot of success in Panama as well as here in the States. I mean, here in his 60s, he's still dominating. He just absolutely wins everything
Yeah, he's
he
state
rides in.
champion.
And he's
Yeah.
involved in a great program in Panama now to go and ride this cross country run across the isthmus. But check it out on our YouTube channel. We have all the episodes recorded on it. You can see that those episodes about him and that motocross riding because it's really cool, man. Panama has a good motocross legacy. It's pretty cool.
Yes, it sure does. And this was 77, 78. So this is when Jerry first started getting up to the bigger bikes. So this is when he
Right.
started winning and he hasn't lost since.
Yeah.
From 77 till now. Something else, Willie, that came out on the spillway that I thought I'd bring up was right after the treaties, everybody in the zone got a raise, right? For whatever reason,
Yeah.
everybody got a raise. Well, they also in the zone, I didn't know this, but in the zone, when you worked there, you didn't get a credit card. You just had a credit limit. So you can buy with just saying by using your name, and of course they would come off your paycheck, but every employee had a credit limit.
Isn't that cool? They had almost
Yeah,
like a
that was
credit
so
union.
cool. I didn't never knew about that. Now that
Yeah.
credit limit can like you can go to any retail store or storehouses, purchases, motor transportation, and gas station
Well, knowing
merchandise.
us
Only those
kids, man,
things.
they probably was better off not knowing that shit because
Yeah, they're
somehow
not telling
we've
us
been
that.
buying beer on that stuff.
Yeah, storehouse purchases. You could buy beer, right? And retail stores. But all that you could put on credit. You could just say, whatever. I guess you would give your address or your ID number. And
Yeah, right.
so I thought that was pretty cool. Everybody
Yeah,
got
interesting.
a credit limit increase during this time of the treaties. And I
Right.
guess that was to soften the blow too.
Yeah,
And
of course.
and back then the interest was 6%, half
Yikes.
percent per month. Oh my God.
Wow.
So yeah, that's kind of cool that was happening
Indeed.
then.
Nice little
So what
perk.
else was happening on this day?
So you guys in the
Oh
comments, what were you guys if you were around in 77?
yeah, let
What
us
do you
know what.
remember about being there? Especially like were there news crews around? Because I imagine, they're talking about the canal and the treaty. So as much as they were maybe filming stuff of the government offices in Panama, a lot of them obviously were in the zone filming stuff of the life of the
Oh
Zonians and
yeah,
the
yeah.
Americans and everything else. So if you've got some of those, share them in the
Share them
chat
with us.
here and,
Yes,
and and see what that was all about. But let's say hello to a couple other people, Ricky, before you keep going there. Let's
yes.
see.
Hey, Frank.
Good to see you, Frank Dupree. Frank was wanting to know today's the 27th. Listen, I had to figure that out myself when I got up earlier. I was like, man, is it Friday? Oh yeah, it is Friday.
Right, that's that 1 week between Christmas and New Year's where we don't even know what day it is, what
Yeah, well, and,
hour
and
it
our
is.
and our system doesn't seem to work here. So
We're
yeah, sorry,
drinking at
Frank.
10 a.m.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Jill.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah. Hi, Jill. Merry Christmas. No, let's listen. Let's just wrap that up and let's move on into what we're all here for. Last thing I had
Yeah,
on my what happened on that day in Cristobal. A lot of stuff was happening in Cristobal. They had the Polynesian dancers and dinner happening in Cristobal that week. So that's kind of what was happening during the treaty. So it seems to us like the government, the Canal Zone government, was trying to entertain us with
yeah.
all kinds of
Sure. I mean,
activities,
tensions were
events.
high. People were just. It was probably
Yeah,
not a good
tensions were
time.
high. Yeah, they raised. Everybody got a raise. Everybody got
You know.
credit. Limits increases. So people were shopping,
And
and these credit increases always came in September, right before the school season. So that's
how
kind of cool.
convenient.
So
Well,
we all
with
got our clothes and everything. No wonder we all
right.
had new clothes
Well,
for
that's when that
school.
fiscal year comes. They probably had to spend the money to get that in their budget next year. So they
Right,
start
right.
offering credit, man. Say, come on, spend money out here to use that money up. But you know what's interesting? Now that you mentioned that, 77 was a treaty, and again, the mood in the zone was probably not very good because of what everybody was facing. And
Right.
so, in my case, in August of 77, I'm still not even 10 years old, right? I'm December is when I turned 10. So in that sense, maybe I would say I'm a little more fortunate that that wasn't front and center in my mind too much because it wasn't, I was a kid, it wasn't really that impactful for me. Where somebody maybe high school or after that, obviously, is probably was a bit more of of a shitty time for them, with
Yeah, I was
everything that
going
was.
into 10th grade that year.
Yeah,
So that was
so
that was the big year, right? You're a Balboa Ram, you're in Fastlage, you got your first big girlfriend. So that was
right,
a big
you're going
year,
into high
yeah.
school.
Big
You're
thing.
you're moving on from Corundu Junior High to BHS. That's a big step.
Oh yeah, that was when I was first going into Balboa High School. You know how
Yeah,
huge that was?
that's a
Remember
big
you're
deal.
going to Corundu for the first time was huge, but going to
Yes.
Balboa High School for the first time, wow.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know,
funny that going into Corundu, that one is a big deal because I guess the equivalent now is middle schoolers, and everybody that's a parent now in our age group, middle schoolers are brutal. That's a brutal age. They're rude and nasty, and they're just out of control. And so going into Corundu as a seventh grader probably was tough. I didn't have to worry about that. I was in St. Mary's. I didn't go to Corundu till ninth grade. So when I went in there, I
yeah, me,
was,
I went 8th grade. I went
top of
8th grade,
the
yeah.
food chain there. So it was probably softened the blow a bit for me, but nonetheless. So yeah. So no, it's let's go ahead and move on. Say hello to a couple other people, and then keep moving things on because we are a little bit behind here, and but we want to make sure everybody gets involved and gets to say hello and gives their 2 cents. They are two treaties. Yes, a lot of people don't realize that. When you hear people refer to it, it's the Canal treaties they refer to. They don't call it the Canal Treaty, right? And that's because there were two treaties. There was a treaty of the ownership of the canal itself, and then there was a treaty of what you were and weren't allowed to do with the canal and
The
who.
neutrality treaty they called it.
Correct, correct. And so that's some of the stuff that's kind of going on right now. And there's some of these points of contention. Um, let's see here. EMC 2468 is I used to buy clothes upstairs at the commissary. Somehow came out of my dad's paycheck. Not sure how. There you go. That's right. The commissary upstairs was where the clothes was. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Very
Now
cool.
we know how we got it.
Ah,
Yeah.
good memory there. Frank Dupree, Merry Christmas to everybody here, guys. Look at this one. Yeah, the Shah of Iran was in there in '70. That's right. Nobody
Yes.
wanted him. The Shah had been he was they hadn't had the revolution just yet, but he was in treatment for cancer, so he went out to Contadora. I do remember that, right? What up, hey Joni? Good to see you. That's in your neck of the woods, there, Ricky, out in the West Coast.
Yes, yes, yes. Joni McCall,
Absolutely.
yes.
And Jim Duffus. Jim's travels all
Hey,
over the
Jim.
place. Jim will chime in from Arkansas, from South Carolina, from Oregon or Washington or
Oregon,
wherever,
yes.
but nonetheless he chimes in. Love to have that. Just chiming used to the 6% for new furniture. Heck yeah, at 6%, that's the way to do it. Finance your new furniture. How many people got the remember the furniture that became popular in the early 80s, late 70s? That came in from somewhere in Asia. They would ship it in. All of a sudden, everybody was getting that furniture, and I mean, the entire house was furnished in.
It's like a wood one,
It
like
was.
a
It
dark
was like
wood.
teak
Yeah,
or I
yeah.
don't know, something from Asia, but it just became a really big deal in the zone. Yes, yeah. Well, I don't feel like that, trust me, but we are indeed. Let's see. Jill says signed. We had a 3-day rock concert in Diablo. Wearing easy shirts. Yes, that's right. You remember those shirts to Jimmy from the Canal Zone?
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
were
I
pretty
went to
cool.
that 3-day party thing at
Hmm.
the spinning club, and the Duprees. Oh my God, Mrs. Dupree and I were interviewed. Oh my God, I just remember this, and I got a bunch of Duprees on. Mrs. Dupree and I, for some reason, ABC came up to us and interviewed us. Not that we were together or anything, but they just interviewed us. And
Right.
of course, I was Canal forever. And of course, my uncle was president of the country at the time too, and that came out on TV. And my poor parents had to
With your
hear
name
about it.
emblazoned all over it, of course.
Yes, and I was with Mrs. Dupree, who she was blonde and beautiful, and I remember that. So hey, yeah, there you go. The Duprees, your wife and your mom was on TV with me back in that
Very
at that
cool.
party, at that same party that Jill just mentioned. But that was a great party. It was a 3-day event. I don't think it ever stopped, Willie. And they had
Probably not.
bands and
I mean, that's.
food,
Are you kidding?
and it just
No,
went on and on and on and on and on.
nobody wanted
And
to
it was
stop, which
yeah,
was
it
very
was
emblematic of you don't want this to end the Canal Zone, and so
hmm
that
hmm
party ends. It's signifying the end of the Canal Zone. And look at this. I remember Jesse Jackson came to Balboa High School and spoke to us. We were supposed to be happy
yes.
the canal was going back. So I got a funny story about Jesse Jackson. Kind of cynical, but years ago I was up in Washington D.C. I went up there for a autism conference, and when I was flying back, uh, I'm at Reagan National waiting for my flight, and I realized that I left my organizer at the hotel. I was like, darn it, man. So I called the hotel. And I was like, hey, I was in this room. I just checked out. I left my organizer there. And they're very gracious. They're like, we'll send a driver out there. I was like, oh, great. Thank you. So I'm waiting out there on the curbside for the guy to pull up. And a Lincoln SUV pulls up. And who's in the front passenger seat? Jesse Jackson. And he gets out. He's like, how you doing? I'm like, hey, how you doing? He walks up and said something to somebody else, and the other guys were getting out, and I'm standing there looking at him. So they're looking at me as if I'm working with them or something. And they asked me where the U.S. air flight or whatever, and I pointed in the other direction. So they took his luggage down like to United or something, the other end of the airport, and his flight actually was right there. And then I got my organizer. The guy pulled up and off I left. So you know, I felt kind of good that his luggage got delayed or sent to the wrong place. But
Oh, he was a good guy. But I do remember him coming to the Canal Zone. I do remember that.
yeah, a lot of people.
Yep. Willie, birthdays. We got to get into the politics, man.
Yep, we do. I know, but we got a lot of people we got to
I'm
talk to. Man.
dying
There's a
over
lot of
here.
people take the time to say hello, and we want to recognize them.
Yes,
This
yes,
show is about Zonians, and listen, we had Al Sprague on for 3 hours, so if we run a
Yeah.
little bit long, I'm okay with that. Honestly,
Yeah,
I am,
you're right.
you
You're
know.
right. You're right.
But
you're
and
right.
listen, Steve Talkman, guys. Steve, make sure you throw the title of your book there again. Steve Talkman's got a great book that you guys need to read about some interesting. It's a fiction book, but it's a great story, and it's probably based on some truth nonetheless. But yeah, make sure you mention it out there, Steve. Make sure you promote your book out there for sure.
Mary, Margaret Keller. I know everybody there. I mean, I knew of them because they were a little bit older than me. Yeah.
Right. Section I
Terry
was
Hunt.
used equipment. Section B was
Yeah.
new items from the storehouse. Okay. The storehouse. Where was Section B? I don't remember where that was. I wonder if
Is that
that's
the
that
one that
building
was,
we talk about that was next to the Balboa Theater.
or is it the one that was just past the skating ring?
Well, that was Section I, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Section
Yeah.
that was where you got all kinds of cool
Yeah,
stuff
that's what
there.
he's talking about there. The used equipment was Section I. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could just sign and have a PRD payroll deduction. Had a friend who didn't get a paycheck because he bought too much. Yeah. You think they would limit you, but right on. Rosewood,
No,
that's
they did
right.
have a limit, I guess. I
Well,
don't know.
obviously not. The limit was
Yeah.
when you couldn't get paid. I guess that's the end of it. There,
Rosewood. You're right. It is Rosewood. That I definitely want to be
everybody
ready.
had those,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was cool. Jim Shoby had a deal and filled a container from Johnson's car for.
Oh, and just the
Yes,
section B.
that's
Yes.
that's what it was from Taiwan. That's right. It was quite the deal because he must have gotten maybe even more than one container because we got a full house of furniture for that. I mean, a full living room, the couches, the
Yeah.
big the big
Yeah. A lot of
cabinets.
families had that. You're right.
And that was back then when
That
they had
and
the
the
giant TVs where you needed a cabinet, right? You couldn't hang them on the
right.
wall like today.
And the military guys all like those Costa Rican carts. Remember with the
Yes, yes,
colorful wheels, the big wheels. Yeah, they're
yeah,
always
yeah.
outside
Those
in
wooden
your
ones. That's
front
right. Those
lawn.
ox carts.
Those ox carts.
I
Yeah,
have
those were
full
big in the
house
zone.
full of it. Yes, yeah, we have some of that stuff. I think my brother or my sister, one of the, I think my brother has the grandfather clock. I do remember
Oh
those.
yeah, cool. I remember
6 years
those.
increase, and then they took the stores away. Yeah, they sure did. Janet was sixth generation. Oh, right on. Wow, that's amazing. What a great family legacy you guys have. A great Zonian legacy. Steve Ranson. First, oh, right on, Mr. Ranson. He was one of my teachers in high school. Right on. Heading to Panama for the first time since '88.
Oh,
Drop your name.
oof.
Yes, drop my name, of course. They still know me at the airport. Tell them, hey, I know Willie from Tacuman, man. So yeah, they'll let you through quickly, I'm sure. No, actually, remember, guys. And I wonder how that would apply if you worked down there in the zone, like Steve did. He worked down in the zone. If he could get through that passport line.
It has as long as your passport says you were born in Panama,
Oh, it has to
like
be born. Okay.
place of
Okay.
birth. It says Canal Zone, Panama. Good enough.
Well,
You're on
have
the
somebody
you're
hold
on
your
the line.
place in line and then try and dash into that line. If they let you through, great. If not, you got to jump back in the other one. But well, have a good time in Panama. That's awesome. That's awesome. Industrial division were section B. Okay, yeah. Where was that in relation to that what everything was going on in Balboa there in the
Hi,
central Balboa?
Macy.
Because there was so if you're facing the clubhouse and then to the right of it was Balboa Theater. And then remember a little ways over was that next building, which was the one that we were showing in those pictures at one time that people could identify where that building was. I wonder which one that was. Yeah, several containers. Yeah, they had to have been because I know a lot of people were getting that furniture. It had to be more than one container for sure. Who was in the JROTC in Balboa? A lot of people. I wasn't, thank God, but I probably should have done it. It probably would have done me some good. I know my dad certainly tried to get me into that several times. Man,
No, I remember it's either you did that or you did sports.
yeah,
It was
true.
either gym or ROTC, but like Guillermo Payne was huge in JROTC. He was like
So was
special
Victor,
forces there, and so was his brother Jose, who graduated with me.
Luis, and
Uh,
Victor. I think all of them
and
were.
that young Leonard Macy also graduated with me. Of course, I
Well,
remember you.
and Mr. Payne was in the Marines. He was quite the
Yeah. That's why
Marines.
all the Paynes
Yeah,
were
that's
in
why they
the
got such a
ROTC
great family
program.
legacy. Those
Yeah,
guys
my
too as
tight
well.
end Lawrence Pierre was also in the ROTC. So there was a lot of football players that were also on the ROTC
And,
program.
and Victor
And even
followed his dad
and
in his footsteps of the Canal Zone Police, not in Canal Zone obviously, but he was a sheriff here till just I think this last year he retired.
Jose is like the chief police for Apple, the
Wow, that's
corporation.
awesome.
Yeah, like he's big, huge there. Um,
Oh, that other building was
no,
housewares. Yes, thank you, Frank.
yeah. Now, one thing I do remember about the ROTC though, all our football games. Remember those guys would come out in parade. And those guys were
Yeah,
sharp.
you
I
remember
mean,
doing the guns and
and they did
clack.
the guns. I know, man.
Yeah,
Those
that was
guys,
so cool, man.
those guys were right on.
Yeah.
So right on. Thanks for bringing that up. Great memory to reminisce about the ROTC. And I know a lot of it was huge program in at Balboa. That was
It
not.
was.
They had their own wing and everything.
Sure did. Sure did. They
And
had
now,
their
who
own
taught
building, man.
that? Did the military guys teach that class,
I believe it
or
was. I believe it was somebody in the military, but somebody here will be able to answer here in
and what
just a
were the
moment.
subjects? Was it like military? I mean, what was the topic?
I would assume so because I think you even actually went in with a
Like
little bit
military history?
of some kind of a rank or something,
Yeah,
by doing that.
Joseph Lure, who's on with us tonight, also was
If you go
on
under
the
the hedges, yeah, that's right. And then you know what? Afterwards, there was the first house right there on El Prado. People hung out there. I would have hated to have lived in that house if I was somebody because that's where all the smokers went. Because you
Yeah,
just went
Jerry
across the
Espinosa
street.
lived in that house, so yeah. I remember I had
Everybody
friends
went
that
to
lived there.
smoke.
Yeah, those 3
That's
houses
funny.
behind the volleyball courts.
Yes, correct.
The
Yeah, Joe, that
backyards
was
of
a
all those
furniture
3
store.
houses.
Yeah, the toy store I think was connected to the commissary. That was the next one over, but across the street on that was that called Balboa Avenue? Was that the name of that road?
In El Prado?
No, the one that went across in front of the Balboa Theater, in front of the clubhouse.
Oh, yeah, Balboa Avenue, yeah.
Okay, right on,
Avenida Balboa. No,
right
mentira,
on.
that's in Panama.
No, yeah, that's
No,
another
no,
one. Yeah.
Balboa Avenue, I think it was called Balboa Road.
Yes. Hey, what up, happy hour? Hey,
Hey,
salute,
Pat.
Pat. Good to see you, man. Listen, Pat, you got to share some of those pictures of you in that van. This guy is the consummate NFL football fan, dude. You guys got to see the rig that he has. It is absolutely impressive. You almost want to root for the Vikings when you see it. I'm telling you, man. It's pretty darn cool,
Hey, they're
man.
almost rated what, they're ranked number 1?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Or
They're
yeah.
doing pretty good this year.
It's
Absolutely,
gonna be
they are.
them and the Lions, right on.
Yep.
I'm all for the Lions. I'm going in with the
Yeah.
Lions, man. I
Yeah.
want to
No,
see the
absolutely.
Lions win a Super Bowl. That'll be
Well, they
phenomenal.
have a soft spot in my heart because my 2 of my kids, they're my stepkids, but I've raised them since they were babies. But their grandfather's Wayne Fonts, who used to coach the Lions.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I still have a bunch of Lions folding
Yeah,
chairs and tables
active
and all that
duty
cool stuff.
military teachers
Yes,
get
yes.
the
Yep.
see,
Nelson
that's the
Pineda.
thing about that what
Nelson Pineda
Louis
was the
always
best running
mentions.
back that I ever played with. Thank God. This guy was awesome. No, sorry. Go ahead, Rick. I keep interrupting you.
No. It's because we're both we know where we want to go. We're both like, all right. So let's do
Chomping at the
birthdays,
bit.
Willie. Let's do
Yeah, let's do
birthdays,
birthdays
and
and
then
then we'll
we'll get
jump back into the
into
chat a little
all
bit.
here
Right
for.
on. Yeah, for
All
sure.
right, let's do our birthday. First of all, I want to start with all my 81s, and I've got a bunch of I got a couple 81s in here, and Lure 82. Lure, very tough kid. Let me tell you, man.
Right?
He threw the best parties too, man. Best toga parties you can ever imagine. I mean, his toga parties were legendary before Animal House. I swear,
Oh,
Animal House got
nice.
their how to do a toga party
Ah, somebody
from
vacationed in
Lure's
Panama and got the idea.
parties. Yes. Well, happy birthday to Julia Archibald. And her birthday's tomorrow. So happy birthday, class of 81. Gary Henderson from Gamboa. Happy birthday to you, Gary. Danny Mendiola, a military guy, good football player. Happy birthday, Danny. I think they're Hawaiians.
Okay.
But very, very. There was three brothers. They all came up, and they just were great football players. And Jose Ramos, happy birthday to you, Jose. And one thing about Babo High School, like I said, for some reason they always came and got me to go take the new kids around. So I got to meet a lot of the people, a lot of the kids from different country. And this was a kid from Taiwan that came to our school, Samson Wong. Happy birthday to you, Samson. And I do remember you quite well. So that's our 81s. Thank you guys, and happy birthday. Moving on, Bunny Day, happy birthday, very beautiful. On the 25th, as well as my cousin Natalia Arroyo, both on the 25th. Vanessa Amity, happy birthday to you.
Amity.
Amity, a fellow architect, Brian Laverty, his father, big time Canal executive,
Yep.
if
Raymond.
not the top guy there at one time.
Yeah.
Adrian Rowley, happy birthday. That is the son of Coach Rowley. Dave
Daughter.
Millard, the one and only. Let me tell you,
And
Dave.
Adrian is a girl, daughter.
Oh, daughter. Oh, sorry. Dave Millard, happy birthday to you.
Yes.
You to us mean the world, to Jerry and I, especially. Dave was doing, wheelies for a mile before wheelies were a thing.
Right.
Dave was doing motocross before anybody.
That's
And
funny you mentioned that.
teaching the kids how to be, just tough on the bike. Like jumping off. He was the guy that
Yeah.
first showed up, put trash cans, a door, lined up all the little rats like me, Jerry Curtis, Frank Pineda. I think even you, Scotty, and then they would jump over us.
All right.
Remember the last guy had to wear a helmet?
Yeah, of course. That's the one you're going to get landed on 50-50. You get hit with the bike.
You had to wear. Well, Dave Millard, what a legend, man.
Well, Ricky
Happy
Rivera
birthday to you,
posted on
David.
Facebook today that the same thing. He goes, "This guy's a legend. He taught me all about." He goes, "He used to ride wheelies and motocross in flip flops." He goes, "He was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
goat."
I mean, he would start his wheelies in Ancon and that Babo, I call it theater.
That's
Straight one
hilarious.
wheel the whole way,
I love it.
and come down the hill too. Let me tell you, Andrew Willachek, happy birthday, Andrew! Big inspiration to me. Let me tell you, Willie, I got into construction management because of him.
Oh, right
He
on.
was the one that I looked up to and said, you know what, I want to do what that guy does, man.
Very
Andy,
cool.
happy birthday to you, brother.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Alice Lawler, did I say that right?
Laura.
Lawler. A manager, right? She's a manager for all the hotels.
Her sister Yvonne is. Alice was in my class in '86. Her sister Yvonne is '84. But she
Yeah.
manages that resort across the bridge out in Kobe. Great resort. They were there for the class reunion last year, the Canal Zone reunion.
Yeah. Now you guys understand why I do the bochincha, because I always get everything wrong, and then Willie comes in and gets it all
El
right.
machetazo, this guy, man, with names. Are you kidding me?
Kelly Strongberg, the beautiful
Yes.
Kelly Strongberg, happy birthday. Cheryl Allen Williams, that is she's a board of director for the Panama Canal Society.
Nice.
Yes. PJ Joyce. Paul is a very, very good. Happy birthday to you, Paul. Very good friend of my little brother Reynaldo. He lives out here with us. He lives close by, and
right
we
on.
actually do a lot of barbecuing with him. He's also a airline pilot.
Oh, right on.
Story on him was he was in the Navy in Puerto Rico, right? I forgot the name of the base there, and the base captain was this guy from Clayton. The base commander was this guy from Clayton, and somebody out there will remember his name. Very good football player, but he was the base commander.
Okay.
And Paul was just enlisted, and there was a program to be a pilot, to be in and learn how to fly. And this Paul, I don't know if he qualified or not, but the base commander got him in, and today he's an airline.
Nice. See, that's how that Zonian
That's the
connection
Canal
works,
Zone
man.
right there,
Heck
man.
yeah.
Right there.
Salute. Drink to that one, everybody.
Yeah,
Hell
drink
yeah.
to that, man. That's a great Canal Zone story.
Heck yeah, man. Fantastic.
Yes. And let me see, Mr. Larry Solene, the senior police,
Canal Zone Police.
Canal Zone Police, yes, and a neighbor of ours, and a very
Yeah.
good friend of our family. Martin Revello, the older brother of the beautiful Patricia Revello.
Yep.
And guys, you guys in Tampa, Martin's in a band. Willie, I
Yes.
think they're called Willie. What's the name of their
Vane
band?
Rachel.
Vane Rachel.
Yeah.
So you guys
Roddy
out there,
Underhill plays with them as well.
Oh, Roddy is a very good guitar player.
Fantastic.
So
guitar
right
player,
on.
Yeah.
Well, Martin, happy
Ravello.
birthday, Martin.
Yep.
Yeah, salute. Linda Benninghoff,
Yes,
happy
sister-in-law.
birthday to you. Yes.
Salute, Linda.
yes.
Her birthday's coming up on
Salute,
Sunday.
Linda. That's Scotty's wife. I hope I
Yeah,
got that
honorary
right.
Zonian. Yeah, Zonian by marriage. Zonian in
Those
law.
are the best. Those are the best.
Yeah, right
Yes.
on.
Our president at the Canal Society, Carl Orvis. Happy
Happy birthday,
birthday,
Carl.
big guy. The beautiful Donna Date, which was a cheerleader for our football team, and
Right on.
I think one of my first girlfriends ever. Thank you,
Oh, there you
Donna.
go. Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, right on, Donna. And Neo Goldfarb, last but not least,
Yes.
Bible elementary teacher. I think he was your teacher there, Willie.
Neil Goldfarb was my classmate. His mother was my teacher. She was in Balboa Elementary School. Wonderful, wonderful lady. And yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Neil's a good friend. Neil's a good guy. I love Neil.
Yeah, well, happy birthday to you
Yeah, happy
guys. That
birthday
was
to
a
you, Neil.
great list, and enjoy Christmas and your birthdays and New Year's. So you guys are, definitely the party group.
Yeah, and for anybody that we don't mention again, we are limited on who we have here. But that being said, we just launched our website. It's still a work in progress, but
Oh, yes.
scncanalzone.com, check it out. Um, you can watch the show streaming there live as well, but it streams off of the YouTube channel. So,
Better to
who
watch
knows what
YouTube,
the
right,
hell's
right.
streaming on it now. But we're going to include a lot of cool things on there. There's going to be a commissary feature that it's only going to feature anybody that's vendors that sell like at the reunion stuff. Zonian vendors can sell your stuff on there, things like that. We're going to have a lot of live feeds to news blogs about Panama. So if you want to check those things out, and then one thing we're going to
Birthdays.
put on there is a calendar, and people can add their name and their date on it, so that we're able to mention everybody's, because I only am able to pull up what I pull up on Facebook, so I'm kind of limited on that, and I waited a little too late, so unfortunately anybody that was on Monday, I'm not able to see it. I was only able to see back to Tuesday. So anybody on Monday the 23rd,
No,
apologies.
we got him. We got him last week. We got all the 23rds last week.
Oh, we did.
I
Okay,
know we did. Yeah, I know we did. I
perfect,
know we did.
perfect.
'Cause
But
I
anyhow, for
raced in.
everybody else, happy birthday to you guys,
Happy
and
birthday.
and as usual, we like to celebrate with our Murga, our great old Panama happy birthday song. All right, yeah, there you go, man. That's that
There
Murga.
we go, Willie.
That was
Finally,
sent
we're
to us
here.
by our we used to call him our historian, non-historian Dave Dahlstrom, but he is now officially our Canals One historian. Um,
Historian, yes. And that
and actually, something exciting for the website, we're going to work on a page on the website that's nothing but Canal Zone history, that obviously he's gonna oversee and include, so we can add some stuff there. And then joining us later tonight's going to be Captain Andrew Eftimitis, who's working on a project with Dave, a really fascinating project involving boat tours around Balboa and the Pacific side around there. That's all historical based. So you're going to see things that are Canal Zone history, Panama history, that are unique because they have that maritime angle. So I'm excited to see that project, and there's they got some really cool ideas with that I'm excited to see. So but nonetheless, that's our birthday salute there. So happy birthday to you guys, anniversaries. And then on a sad note, I don't normally do this, but this news came in today, unfortunately, that we lost a Zonian, a former Canal Zone police officer as well. Gary Anderson passed away today. So rest in peace, Gary, and prayers to the Anderson family in these tough times. But anyhow, so moving along now, let's go ahead and get into what we're going to be talking about tonight. Obviously, listen, this is something that's been it's been front and center in the news for a long time. Not a long time, but certainly been front and center for a
long
lot of
three
people.
days, that's for sure.
Yeah, I guess you could call it a long 3 days for sure. I mean, the moment that this broke, I I my phone has been just bombarded with messages, and I apologize that I haven't been able to respond to hardly anybody, because I've just gotten so many, and even on the social media channels, because it's kind of cool that a lot of people are saying, hey, you know what, you guys are going to talk about it on the show, because it is something that's definitely near and dear to all of us, and we definitely want to talk about what that does for all of us, what it means to all of us. But what we're talking about here then is this speech that Trump gave the other day. I'm just going to go ahead and play the whole thing. It's only like a minute and something long. And again, guys, what we're going to do here is really just kind of give opinions and some things, set some facts straight and some records straight that's part of what Andrew Eftimitis is going to try and join us. Um, that's a hit or miss. He's down in Argentina, and I think he's going to Santiago, Chile, maybe tomorrow or tonight. But we're going to try and get him on board here to give us some perspective there. And there was some things that were mentioned specifically about the U.S. Navy that he's going to be able to address as
Yeah,
well.
because our captain, he is the designated person that the ACP, who runs the canal, assigns to get to transfer American warships through
Yeah,
the
he
Panama
yeah,
Canal.
correct. That's
So he's
something
in
that
charge of that whole operation.
Yep, absolutely. And so therefore he does have some knowledge of this, and again he's hopefully, you know, he's on the other side of the world, on the south side of the world, and hopefully we can get a connection in the work. But let's just listen to this Trump
Now,
speech
this is
first,
start with what
and
Trump said,
and
and
then
then
we'll
we'll
go
take it
from
from
there
there.
and move on and see
Yeah,
what everybody
yeah,
thinks of all of this.
yeah,
So
doing business
yeah.
within
And then I'll
our
tell you some
country,
of my. Go
exorbitant
ahead, sorry.
prices and rates of passage, which they do. They charge us like it's a disgrace. Our Navy and Commerce have been treated in a very unfair and injudicious way. The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that has been bestowed to Panama, I say very foolishly, by the United States. This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop. It's going to stop. The United States has a big and vested interest in the secure, efficient, and reliable operation of the Panama Canal. And that was always understood when they gave it to Panama. Can you believe that? We would never have done it if we thought what's happening now can happen, and we would never, and we will never, ever let it fall into the wrong hands. But it's falling into the wrong hands. It was not given for the benefit of others by a token of cooperation, but it was given to Panama and to the people of Panama, but it has provisions. You got to treat us fairly, and they haven't treated us fairly. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. Doing business.
okay, so there you go. That's what Trump said. This was on Sunday, not even a week ago, in Arizona. To put it in some context, you can see from the podium where he's at. This is a political rally. The cheering, certainly you're going to get it as support, not as much for an American position as it is a Trump position in that sense. So let's just to again clear the record. Um, the next I'm going to play is the response that President Molina gave to what Trump had to say, and then from there we can kind of opine on what our thoughts are. And again, I did some research on a couple of interesting things regarding the concerns with China and whatnot. But anyhow, let's listen to what Molina said in response to Trump's statement.
That is a manifestation of gross ignorance of history. The canal will celebrate 25 years under Panamanian hands, under Panamanian administration, on December 31st. The expansion was successfully completed in 2016. It is an expanded canal for the world, with greater capacity for the transit of ships that could not pass before, which leaves multi-million-dollar profits for our national economy. Just last week, on Thursday, I received this year's dividend check for $2,400,000,000 US dollars. That is 100% Panamanian and will continue to be Panamanian. So, all those speculations and all that range of eventualities that are not going to happen, well, I leave them there as totally irrelevant issues and quite bordering on historical incoherence with what the Panama Canal has been, is, and will be.
Rayando en la histórica.
All right, so that's his response. So in a nutshell, Trump is saying that the United States has been overcharged. There's been some assertions that the U.S. Navy is not maybe given the preferential treatment that they should have, or that again they're paying too much. And then from there, if things don't change, then the assertion is that the canal can be taken back, and including the canal zone. So that's his position. And then of course Molina, as president of the country, and newly elected, right? And I would say, and Rick, I think you'll agree with me, that he's riding a wave of success. He's been doing a lot of really good things since he became
We
president.
talk about him all the time in this
Yeah,
show, all the
certainly.
positive he's done for the country, and he's very pro US. So he
Indeed.
is not taking a he's basically what he's doing, he's taking a neutral stand because everybody in politics in Panama knows what's really going on. And I do have a couple of insights on what's going on there. But before we get into that, let's just keep talking about the rhetoric, I guess.
Yeah, no,
You know,
absolutely. And again, so we want to make sure that everybody understands where these guys, where they're coming from, their positions. Molina, again, he's not just because he's newly elected, but he's the president of the country. So he's going to represent Panama, and his position is one of, a term that we came to learn a lot in the late 70s, early 80s, was that whole sovereignty, because that was really the crux of the entire canal argument. Was that, we're not a sovereign country until we have our canal back and you guys are out of here, was a position that a lot of people took. So I understand where he's coming from. And again, I'm not opining one way or the other, because at the end of the day, in my honest opinion, when this all shakes out, there will not be a canal zone like there was before. Okay, and so therefore, the initial conversation started out that way. Like I said, at our house here a couple days ago, with Christmas, that was the first thing that was asked. Hey, if we get the canal zone back, are you moving back? And jokingly, I said yes. And it wasn't jokingly. The truth is, if a few years from now there is the canal zone is the way it was before, and we have Barnaby Street and Stevens Circle, and we have all the things that we had, heck yeah, I would move back there in a heartbeat. It was a wonderful place to grow up. I loved everything about the canal zone. But that was a long time ago. That was 50
yeah,
years ago, 30 years,
yeah.
whatever the heck it was. It was a
Came and
long
went.
time ago. It's gone. It's gone. You go over
West,
those falls as much as you don't want to. You've gone over the falls. You're not coming back.
yeah,
So,
you're not coming back.
so
But
to
this
me, a
show
lot of
is
that,
about to remind you about all those beautiful days.
no, for sure. And that's the thing about it. That's why I want to maintain this position that I understand both sides of it. I'm half Panamanian, half American. So I have a love for both countries. Which sometimes I always often consider that very fortunate that I was able to grow up in the zone, but not only just to grow up in the zone, but be able to have both parts of it. Right, to be able
Yeah,
to be Panamanian,
yeah.
have a Panamanian family that I could go and celebrate things with, and going to Agua Dulce for carnivals, and all these
Yeah.
other things that was part of the Panamanian experience. And then of course living in the zone, and going home for home leave every summer, and all that kind of great stuff. So it was amazing. It was wonderful. Loved everything about it. But that's history now. That's part of
Yeah,
why we do this show, to reminisce and
to
live these
reminisce
things.
it. Yeah.
So that extreme, I don't believe it's going to happen. What do I think is going on? Well, you know, most of you guys that know me from a political standpoint know that obviously I'm a Trump supporter, but in this case, there's a lot of things that he said that I don't agree with, and they're just factually incorrect. And I understand his mode of operating. If you know Donald Trump before he ever got into politics, this guy was known for obviously his TV show, but even way before that, this guy was he sold a book, a number
He's
one seller, The Art of the
number one
Deal.
expert in rhetoric.
Well,
Number
that too,
one.
but I mean, The Art of the Deal was something that he made himself famous on, was his negotiation techniques. And that's what I think really is going on here from that
Correct.
standpoint.
So let's talk
Is
about that.
Well, that's what we're
What
doing.
does Trump want to
That's what
negotiate? What does
well
what does the US want to
so
negotiate?
so let's get to that point. Let's understand what these treaties are, okay? Because there was two treaties that were signed, right? There was that treaty for ownership, to transfer ownership of the canal zone, all the buildings, which is obviously something that was a phased, transition. And then the second treaty, which, we'll argue that the first treaty was the most important one, but to the United States, the more important treaty was the
The
second one,
second one, yeah, the neutrality
the
treaty.
neutrality. And it was neutrality with a U.S. flavor. Let's not kid ourselves, right? It was all based around the Monroe Doctrine, and the fact that Panama was part of the United States'
Correct,
backyard,
Willie.
and so therefore
Correct.
that plays a big role in this. When these treaties were signed, we were in the heart of the Cold War, right? This
Willie,
wasn't thought of
Willie.
as a China thing. This was thought of as a Soviet Union thing,
Correct. And
right?
Willie, the deconcini, that clause that the on the second treaty, the neutrality treaty, what Trump was referring to when he says we'll take it all is the treaty does say if the canal is not operating or is in the wrong hands, they can not only take over the canal and the canal area, but the entire country.
Okay,
That's
interesting.
in the treaty.
Interesting.
So yes, so what that has done is it's awakened, obviously, the political class in Panama. Now, Panama truly doesn't think that the United States is going to come in, invade, take it over. They don't. They don't. That's not what's going on. But what I see that is going on is we've had governments that have done business with China. And then Willie's gonna get into some of these numbers later, and that's all good. Everything's good. There's nothing wrong with Panama doing business with other countries, but what has happened is that you know the way that the canal has operated. It's not that they're operating the canal wrong. They're not. They're doing a great job operating the canal. It's the art of the deal, put it that, like Willie said. A lot of the business deals that are happening within the canal are being done. I'm going to go out there and say this, but this is what the show is about. It's being done with corruption. In other
Yeah.
words, there's no fair bidding going on. And
There's no
how can you
transparency.
tell that? Every single government contract from the canal, whether it's the bridges, whether it's yeah, I'm not gonna get into it, but a whole bunch, 4 or 5 of them, all China, the ports, all the Chinese won those
And they're
contracts.
negotiated behind closed doors, and that's
And
the big
right,
issue that
and
people
they
have, that
win the
lack of
contracts
transparency.
with corruption. We all know that. Is there proof? No, 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 no. Whatever. We're not. This show is not about that. This is what goes on. Everybody knows that. So they're being put on notice that look, it's not that you're not running the canal right; it's that you're not doing business right. And the the spirit of the contract is let's just be fair. The way we ran it, the way we negotiated the treaties with you, was done in the right way. Now
Right.
that's kind of like the nature or the feeling of that arrangement that they had, and that's being broken. So, uh, what this is also has done is in Panama is the following: the politicians all thought that the whole country was going to unite and say, "Oh no way, we're going to defend our canal, we're going to fight to the last man," and blah 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 blah. No,
Yeah.
this is the big surprise in Panama, in my opinion. Remember, guys, this is all my opinion. That they woke up to figuring out that half the country said, "What? Bring the Americans in. Good for us." And not because they want to be Americans, which I'm sure it's a good thing. It's because we're also sick and tired of the corruption, guys.
True.
You know,
True.
we're all sick and tired of hearing how China wins absolutely every freaking contract. And now, there's areas in the canal, in the causeway, for example, they have a pier out there. Only Chinese can go in. That's it. If you're not
Yeah.
Chinese, you're not going in.
Yeah.
So these are the things that are considered breach of contract
And the areas of concern
and
for the
areas
United
of
States from that
concern.
national security standpoint. You know. But and
Yes, and
interesting, like what Rich puts in the comment there, very unique and blessed history, and it really is, and that's why
very
it has
unique.
become strained in recent years, even to the point when Ricky alleges this corruption. And we will certainly tread lightly here, guys, because all these things, they are opinions, and we, I hate to sound like a news show or a TV show and say allegedly, because I don't want somebody to slap me with a lawsuit. But
Oh,
Panama had diplomatic relations with Taiwan for 106 years. And then in one fell swoop, they broke all relations with Taiwan. They recognized China as the one China. And coincidence? I'm not sure it is, that all of a sudden China and Panama started doing a lot of business together. Okay. And I'm going to get to a point here that's important with this You
Yes,
know,
we are. That's a very good point too, Willie. And then another little insight that I got, which I'm sure is probably news everywhere, but this is before it came out in the news, I had heard about it. Mulino, guys, is Mulino with an O, not with an A. Mulino brought together all the Chinese, brought them in, and told them straight up, you need to abide by the neutrality treaties as a warning, because Panama knows when push comes to shove, they're going with the bully. They're not going to
yeah,
go with China, who's just a trillion miles away, right? So Molino kind of, for what I heard, brought them all together and put them on notice. You guys want to do business? Keep it fair, right? If there's corruption and we find out, breach of contract, you're out of here.
yeah, no,
So
absolutely, absolutely. They're
that
not
is a
messing
little
around.
insight. We know it happened, so it's not bochinche. We know that meeting happened.
Yeah,
So
no, it really is, and so it was interesting the other day when Ricky and I were talking, and this meeting took place, and we had spoken about it because it was again not a well kept rumor, or a well kept secret, I guess, but you know you could pose a question: did this meeting take place as a result of what Trump said? Or was this meeting already scheduled and that prompted Trump to say what he had to say? Why?
no,
Either one would
I
be.
understand the other way around.
It's
It came
possible.
together because of what Trump said.
Which and if that's the case, that's really interesting that they would have that kind of influence to basically call a meeting and make people show up, immediately, on that
Well,
spur
the
of the moment.
president calls you, you got to go. You can't
Yeah,
piss
well,
on the president.
for what it's worth, China has a record of strong arming, which is actually a great segue to what we want to kind of talk about here. But let's chat with some people again on here because we're gonna
Yeah.
run out of chat room here. John's got a couple of great points regarding negotiating points. Something he wants from Panama, immigration, stopping. Yeah, absolutely great points. He wants to
Yes.
you know put themselves, United States, in a position of strength to negotiate, right? And everybody can claim victory at the end of the day, and everybody gets what they want.
Yes,
So
immigration
if
is one of the things on the table for negotiations. And Willie, a second thing, which is I know perhaps not out there, is but there's a lot of politicians, and one that I follow, which we might have on the show, Adolfo Linares, an attorney.
yeah,
He is putting out there that this is probably the time for, because he's he follows Trump, and I know he's big on Trump.
yeah,
That this is probably the time for, because he knows Trump wants something. This is probably the time for Panama to renegotiate that neutrality treaty,
certainly.
because remember that was brought on. Panama had negotiated one treaty and approved it, and then it went to the U.S. and then they added the deconcini clause.
Right, which was in
But
essence the second
without it,
treaty.
there was no treaty. So,
Correct.
Panama had to take it or leave it. Because
Yeah.
if they said, "Oh, take it out," well, there never would have been a
And
treaty.
what Panama really, probably more than anything, wants out of that is that clause that says if there's any danger, we can take over not just the canal and the canals, but
Yeah,
the
right. The
entire
whole country,
country.
right? They want to get
You
rid of
know,
that,
and,
even
and
though there are norms out there that don't allow you to do it. But you have a signed treaty,
well,
so
and you
yeah,
you think about the times that when all these things were taking place. If you go back to the late 70s, okay, there was a lot of instability in Central America. Okay, the Russians and the Cubans, or like the Soviets, you would call it back then, and the Cubans were putting a lot of pressure in America's backyard. With Nicaragua and everywhere else. So El Salvador had a lot of instability. Guatemala had a ton of instability. Uh,
that's
you
where
know,
Joseph Lure is.
and the one country that you never saw that was Panama. And it was real simple because a lot of people, even during some of these uprisings, with Colombia and whatnot, they talked about setting up some insurrections, and they said
Oh,
absolutely
that
not.
whole January 9th, right in the Canal Zone, that was all Cuban.
Right, but what I'm getting at is that a lot of your insurgency leaders said, "Heck no, we're not going into Panama." They have a lot of military bases, and these guys work on jungle warfare there. We will absolutely get annihilated in this place. So Panama always had a huge safety net by having the canals on there. So it made that negotiation quite easy at the time. Now you fast forward 20, 30 years later, and they're saying, "Wait a minute,
Well,
listen, we're."
it's not like there was a choice either. So if either that clause went or no treaty,
Yeah. Well, there
and we still be the Canal Zone.
there's a lot of there's a couple of different books out there that will talk about some of those negotiations where there was a big push by the IMF and some other globalists that make this stuff happen behind the scenes anyway. So it's interesting to find out which way it would go. But again, going back to our original premise, like Vern's saying on the screen there, when he went there, he's saddened by what the former living areas were like. Absolutely. And so, just from the standpoint of, if in theory this were all to happen, you got to move out a whole lot of Panamanians first. And then you got to
Yeah,
maybe
and that's not
rebuild
going
some
to
of that
happen.
stuff. Not going to
Right.
happen. It's
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
it's 2024. If some kind of takeover were to happen, we have the technology now that I don't think we need that many people, that many Zonians living down there to run the canal anymore. So
Correct. And,
either
and,
way,
and
it's not going to go back to what we celebrate here on the show. Let's just leave that for here, and just
correct.
be
And Vern,
fortunate and blessed that we were there. You
yeah,
know.
Vern, thanks for bringing up that the ACP is doing a fine job, because this is not about the ACP. This is what's
Yeah.
happening
Correct.
around the operations. So when they say Chinese are running the canal, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're
Right.
running,
Very
like what
loosely used
ACP
term.
does. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they're more like in the ports and in the government contracts. And
Correct.
then, something that we really got to get into, really, because it's important, because the way we talk, why we talk this way. So let's just go ahead and jump in on those numbers. This is going to blow you guys away,
Yeah. So
uh,
so so this
of
is
Willie's
something
research.
interesting. I'm obviously, I like to get involved with current events and stuff. And again, guys, I don't take this to a political angle whatsoever. But um, when we talk about China and we talk about the concerns with China, and Captain Neftamitis is on standby, he's going to be joining us here in just a moment. But something I wanted to kind of help set the stage, and kind of an understanding of where some of these concerns stem from. um, China has been involved in a program um, called the Brick and Road project. Okay, some people call it the Silk Road project, or I forget what the technical term of it is. I think it's the Belt and Road Initiative. That's what it is. A Belt and Road Initiative. Bottom line is, when it comes to this Belt and Road Initiative, what China has been doing is they're creating a global pathway of they refer to as international trade, but international trade can run side by side with military operations. A lot of those strategic points are places that are defended. I mean, look at all the military bases we had in Panama. Panama was a strategic, traffic point for maritime trade, and so we had, I mean, half a dozen military bases in a very tiny area. That's the level of importance. So China has been going on this initiative for many years, and you know, some people will say they do it as a way to increase economic growth in a lot of areas in the world, so that they can then open up trading markets. And that might be a valid point. Others say that it's more of a strategic way to get control of strategic military points around the world, particularly transit points that especially impact navy and naval
Like
movements.
Sri Lanka.
Sure, absolutely. And so that's where this becomes a area of concern for the United States. There's been a lot of different ways of looking at what China does, and some people refer to it as uh, debt diplomacy. Okay, and debt diplomacy basically means that they go in and say, "Hey, we're going to help you grow all your infrastructure. We're going to loan you a lot of money to do it." Which in turn is going to come back to them, because they end up running all this infrastructure that they put in there. They bring in the construction companies who get paid to do all this stuff. They sell them the raw materials, the concrete, everything else to build it. So
The
they're, they're,
labor.
exactly. So they're loaning out the money, and then they're getting it all back plus interest. Okay, what's happening? Some of these projects and some of these places are just gargantuan projects, humongous projects, and oftentimes the terms aren't as favorable as they should be. And what happens is these countries become unable to pay these back. And therefore now China basically owns these countries. They become, in essence, indentured servants. Sri Lanka, like you said, is a great example of it. They ended up having to sign, through no choice of their own, a 99-year lease with China, simply because they could no longer pay for the debts that paid for those ports that now China has that free lease. They basically have a free port, very strategic, right in the entrance to the Indian Ocean, for nothing. So this is what they've been doing around the world, and the reason why that's a concern in Panama to the United States, it's real simple. There's a couple of factors here that we want to look at to understand where where a Sri Lanka type scenario could occur in Panama. Okay.
And why the United States is concerned.
Exactly, exactly. And so a couple of things that you look at here, and I pulled up this chart here from the International Monetary Fund. And what you see on here is Panama right here. That number 52.39, that is their percent of GDP that goes towards their debt. So over
52%.
50%, over half of their GDP goes into their debt. Now, why is that important? Couple of factors. Okay. Again, the International Monetary Fund is the one that talks about this when it comes to the ability to pay these back. And that's what a lot of people believe is China's ultimate goal with all these countries, is to bankrupt them into forcing them to give them access to everything they want in these countries, because of the fact that they're so indebted to them, and they have no choice, they have no way out of it. And so a couple of things that you want to look at when it comes to that is, again, this GDP rate, this percentage of GDP. There's something called a debt to GDP ratio. Okay. And that, again, is what we're talking about in this number here. And where there's those risk factors that the IMF says, interestingly enough, what they consider a moderate risk. Okay. Moderate risk is anything between 40 and 60% of your GDP. Panama right now is at 52% of their GDP. So they're right smack in the middle of that moderate risk. All right. So they're not in the safe zone there.
Now,
But
why
the
is
one
that
that's,
important?
well, because they if more, if you're producing economically more than half or less than half of what you owe, you're never going to be able to get it, right? Because of
Never
the
get
interest
ahead of
rate that's
yourself.
you're
Correct.
never going to get ahead. Eventually you will be bankrupted.
So yeah, so eventually you're moving towards like a failed state.
You're in towards a state that has no choice but to then relinquish control of these things just because of the
Correct.
debts. Okay.
Correct.
There's
Correct.
another one that's even more important, and this is a much bigger one, which should be more alarming. Okay. Is the debt service to revenue ratio. And again, I'm not an economist, but this is what the IMF says are the danger markers when it comes to this type of debt diplomacy. Okay. That debt to service or to revenue ratio, the high risk on that is anything above 30%. Okay, and the IMF says that governments will struggle to meet debt obligations without severe austerity measures, which means they start cutting back on things. And we know the history of Panama. When you cut social services in Panama, it is mayhem. It is rioting in the streets. It is, I mean, that is something that in most places that have a heavy socialist type presence where the government pays for a lot of things, austerity measures basically means tighten your belt, cutting your budget, and so it creates a lot of instability. But anyway, so that number, that high risk above 30%, Panama is at 41%. So again, they're well above that high risk number, which means that right now China basically has their thumb over Panama, and if things don't change, they could find themselves suddenly being so indebted that they'd have no choice but to relinquish control of that
Original
canal.
the control. Now, how much of that debt goes to Panama? I mean, goes to China, Willie.
Almost 50% of Panama's debt
Almost
is to China.
50% of that. So yeah, so they
42% of Panama's debt is to China.
how much?
42%.
42%. And
Almost
that's the
almost half their
scare.
debt to one
Yeah,
country.
and that is what could trigger that breach of contract
Absolutely.
in the how you call it, in the canal treaties.
And it's just
I don't
not
know.
good for Panama. You cannot operate
Yeah,
in
and
that
I
kind
don't
of
even
debt,
think Panamanians know this.
you
That
know?
they're being owned by the debt they're getting themselves into from all the contracts
You know,
they're
Panama
awarding
has
to
a
these.
wonderful airport. Tucumán is a state-of-the-art airport. They've got
Yeah,
this metro system. You know, they're building these new bridges, all these things. Well, when you start tightening your belt, guess what? Those things start to fall apart. They start cutting corners. They start to pull money out and stop funding things. It's not a good place to be, regardless of the Chinese component. But again, that's the danger of this, because China has a track record of doing this. They've done
correct.
this all. Look it up, guys. Belt and Road Initiative. It's laid out very clearly, and you see the results of what's happened there. So, that's where we see this coming from, and why it's so important to
So important,
to
right?
understand this position, and not just from the standpoint of what the Americans want, but what could eventually come to harm to Panama, which lately seems like a very prosperous country, and it could all come to a screeching halt when some of those bonds come to be owed, and you don't have the money to pay them. So,
Correct.
but
Correct.
anyway, the other thing that we want to talk about, and that's what we're going to bring our guest on, Captain Andrew, which apologize for keeping him waiting there. He's been diligently waiting. He's all the way on the south side of the world.
Well,
But
yeah, and this comes from one of the stories that were out there on the early days that a couple of the U.S. ships had, like, let's say they were going to go through the canal on a Monday, and
Correct.
this is what the story was. The U.S. Navy was in military drills. Part of those drills was to get ships from one side to the other. China got a hold of that or knew about it, and they wanted to send a message to the U.S. And for some reason, Captain Andrew will probably correct this, but this is the story that these two ships were held at let's say they were supposed to transit on Monday. They said, "Oh no, you guys go Friday because of this, and this other reason," right? So that's what the story was. So in other words, China was sending a message to the U.S. that they control the canal,
Right.
because they can stop U.S. ships from going through.
Exactly.
And hence the really harsh response from the U.S. or Trump, because this message was, in my opinion, coordinated, because you do not hear any countermeasure message to it from the Biden administration. None, zero.
Correct.
Right. So the message was, get your act together, stop, doing business with corruption, do business the right way. Because you're endangering the canal, and the treaties are quite clear of what happens if you do endanger the canal. So
Absolutely.
I think Trump is doing a good thing by putting Panama on notice. Now, that may be arrogant, but what has to be said has to be said.
Yeah, agreed. So we're gonna kind of correct the record on that stuff, and
I
really
hope
set
that's
the
not the
record
truth,
straight
by the
on
way.
here. We're gonna find out here in just a
Yeah, we're
moment.
going to find
here.
out from Captain Andrew. Again,
So-
he's in charge of all the U.S. ships, military ships going through the canal.
Yeah, he'll explain to us what his job is there and what he's done, because he plays a vital role in U.S. military shipments through the canal. But so we're gonna take a really quick break. We're gonna show you something that's upcoming that we're working on, a really cool production for a historical documentary on the construction of the canal. So way before all this junk is going on now. But enjoy that, and then when we come back, Andrew will be on to set the record straight on that whole naval story there. We'll see what's going on with it.
Deep within the jungles of Central America lies the Isthmus of Panama, a narrow strip of land connecting North and South America, as well as dividing the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. It is here, in Panama, that explorers dared to imagine the impossible, a path to join the world. King Charles of Spain commissioned a research expedition to survey a canal in the isthmus in 1567. He was searching for a way to shorten months of perilous sea travel around Cape Horn in South America. In the middle of the 1800s, Great Britain also surveyed the isthmus for a canal route and a shortcut to Asia. Finally, in 1881, the French diplomat and Suez Canal builder Ferdinand de Lesseps tried to replicate his efforts in Panama. But unlike the flat and soft sand in Egypt, the stifling jungles, rocky terrain and disease in Panama proved to be a much different and more challenging landscape. This challenge proved to be too much and resulted in failure. As the new century began, the United States took up the challenge of cutting through the continental divide. America was fast becoming a global power. Her new industrial might and ingenuity were about to be showcased to the world. Excavating the impossible, the building of the Panama Canal, is the story of dreams brought forth from failure, of innovative leaders and men who toiled and sacrificed to see two oceans united. It's a story of technology, of courage, and of unbreakable human spirit. This 5-part series will be the most comprehensive and detailed account of the building of the Panama Canal. We'll begin with a journey back 4 centuries to the Spanish Empire and their colonial aspirations, followed by British attempts in the 19th century, and finally culminating with the failed French attempt at the end of the 1800s. Part 2, we'll enter a new century and see the emergence of America and Teddy Roosevelt, with a bold and ambitious plan for a canal where others said it couldn't be done. We'll learn about the early plans, the logistics, the companies and people involved. In Part 3, we'll learn about early hurdles, poor decisions and setbacks that almost doomed the American endeavor. And we'll see how America changed direction and overcame the early stumbling blocks and turned failure into progress. Part 4 will cover the incredible project of surveying, excavating, damming and building of the world's most important waterway, all while engaged in a relentless fight against disease, weather and terrain. Finally, Part 5 reveals the steps in completing this strategic waterway and the first ships that crossed a fully operational Panama Canal, changing global trade forever. This is the most complete and researched authoring of the construction of the eighth wonder of the world. This is a comprehensive story behind one of the greatest engineering marvels in human history, excavating the impossible, the building of the Panama Canal.
All right, so still in the works there, guys. Excited to have that come out. A lot of really cool things. I had a letter, an email from the Library of Congress. They found a map that I've been searching for that was done pre-canal construction. Really cool. It shows what the topography was like in that area that would eventually become the zone, which is going to be an integral part of this documentary. But nonetheless, that's for down the road. Right now, we're going to continue where we were discussing. As you guys can see, Captain Andrew Eftimitis has joined us, Panama Canal pilot. Most of you guys know him. For those of you guys that don't, Captain, he joins us every couple of months and does a Panama Canal report. We talk about what's going on with the canal and with the zone and everything, especially along the canal and whatnot. But tonight he's here to set the record straight on a couple of things that have been said there and kind of give us the lowdown on what the scuttlebutt is in the zone there. So, Captain, welcome to the show. Glad to have you, man.
Hey, glad to be here. Glad to be part of it all, and I want to congratulate you guys as always on the fine job
Can you
that
hear?
you do. Ricky, mi hermano, Willie, un abrazo. And again, I reiterate, as you guys have echoed, uh, nothing I'm going to say is politically inclined. Nothing. We're not going to talk about politics or anything of that nature. Just talk about the facts. Keep it light, and we're going to be going over some interesting topics, and feel free to write any questions that you may have,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we'll try and answer them the best that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and pull up a couple of the chats here, and then we'll proceed because we do have a ton of chats here that people are definitely chiming in. Rob is putting in here. He'll put a detention center in Fort Clayton. It's possible. I mean, the infrastructure is there. It's the Ciudad de Saber now, right? Isn't that what it is? The knowledge, city of knowledge, or whatever. You all talked about the ports in the past. Yeah, it's something that's important. I'm not a fan of China. Let's not kid ourselves. And again, not to get into a whole political discussion, but I don't trust a whole lot of what China does. And they have a track record of doing things, in a way that can be,
Corrupt.
corrupt, bullying, very whatnot. So, from that standpoint, I get it. And again, looking at some of these numbers and figures here, I can see where Panama is kind of positioning themselves in a way that where they suddenly could find themselves in a situation where, like it or not, they have to go along with what China wants simply because they're so indebted to them. But nonetheless, it's we're going to see what happens with that. Let's say Frank here is putting on here: the Panama people want fair labor practice. Sure, that's what everybody wants. Absolutely. And you know what? The unions in Panama traditionally have had a lot of sway. They've had a lot of power. They certainly are able to disrupt very well. We saw that a year ago with those that copper mine protest. The unions were behind a lot of that stuff, and it was very effective in paralyzing the country. So they certainly do have a lot of sway in this, and this is one of those situations where down the road, if it would become a situation where the debt has become so bad and these austerity measures take place, that you're definitely going to have clashes with these unions, and that could create an ugly situation that may eventually, impact the canal, not just indirectly but directly. As maybe some safety measures start to get cut back, and again, austerity measures are not good when it comes to countries that are heavily government operated.
Subsidized like
Yeah, for
Panama.
sure. So, but let's see here. What does Mazzy say? Mazzy, did you know that the minimum wage in Panama is $636? That's the canal minister earns 42 times more than the average worker. That's not fair. Yeah, you know what? It is a disparity, and that's not uncommon in Latin American countries. There is a big, there's not much of a middle class
Well,
in a lot of these
Willie,
countries.
this guy, unfortunately, again, my uncle, during my uncle when he was there as the minister of Canal, gave this guy a raise to 42 or $26,000 a month
Wow,
from
wow.
like whatever our governors were making back in the day, 15 grand or something
Jeez.
like that.
God, when I
10
worked for
grand,
Copa
15
Airlines,
grand.
man, I made 300 a month, man. That was a full
Yeah,
time
though
salary, man.
that's what she's talking about is that incredible raise he got
Interesting,
under the
interesting.
last administration. Yeah.
Sure, sure,
And then,
absolutely. Yep, and
so
then like Steve
Anyways,
says,
I'm gonna
China
talk a little bit.
chose to. No, sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what's going on in the canal. A little bit about the health. The water level is at right at the tippy top, so we have
tippy
plenty of
top.
water, plenty of fresh water. That's not an issue. Um, the
Yeah, I saw a video
rainfall
where
has
those water was flowing over the locks the other day. One of the locks chambers.
sure, yeah, and that's a tricky job there to keep that water. You want it to peak right at the last possible moment, so you have the maximum amount of water in the lake and maximum water in the reserve lake as well.
The reserve lake, is
And
that the one between Miraflores and Pedro Miguel?
no, Madden Dam, Madden Dam.
Madden
Oh,
Dam,
Madden
right?
Dam. Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
so that's topped off. And then they've already started measures to save water, and it's been raining down there, from what I understand, these past couple of days.
right.
But they want to budget that water as much as they can, because the deeper the draft, the more revenue you're going to get
Sure,
again.
sure.
But
For those of you who don't know, when you're talking about deeper the draft, that means the more cargo you're carrying, it's displacing more water. It's moving it out. You got to have a higher water level so you don't hit the bottom. Correct?
right, and we'll start off with this whole thing blowing up last week, and again, I agree with you all. I think it's just the art of the deal. Come in noisy, and hopefully today we can define some things. Looking on Twitter and other social media platforms, a lot of people don't understand the very complex operation of the canal. Besides the legal paperwork that's behind it, besides the fact that the canal is separated between the Panama Canal Authority and the Republic of Panama, there is a lot of moving parts in there that have been, and I'll try to go over the major ones so
Sure.
we can
Well,
get a
let's
better understanding.
speaking of that, let's talk about that Navy component there. And here's what Trump had to say specifically about the Navy.
Our Navy and Commerce have been treated in a very unfair and injudicious way. The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair. Our Navy and Commerce have been treated in a very
So there you go. That's
Yeah. Well, let's start. Let's start with some. That's a good way to start. With some. Oh, there's the Zumwalt. I took that thing through when it was inaugurated in 2016. I piloted that, and it broke down. It did, and I ended up towing it to
Flat tire,
Rodman
that's what we called it.
with 4 tugs. But let's talk about what's out there, what people are saying, and then I can answer that. For example, we have Ricky Amigo. You said you heard something about Navy ships being delayed. Can you elaborate on that? Because I didn't hear that one.
so. But before you do, let's just preface it by saying, what is your role, or at one point your role as port captain, that would give you this inside knowledge on what's going on with Navy ships and transiting?
Well, when I was in the port captain's office, I was in charge of any kind of naval movements, whether U.S. or French or Chinese or Russian. Uh, I was involved in it, one way or another. I was one of many that handled the thing. But we have a playbook. You know, nothing is invented in the air, and some of these rules apply. Well, they apply across the board. Number one, to everybody, and I'll tell you why. Why do we have these rules? The canal is a vital waterway, as we all know. Let's say you're in Brazil and you close down a port. It's not going to affect the whole country.
Right.
You know, they have other ports. But imagine if something happened in the canal, it would affect the Western Hemisphere to begin with and impact a lot of people.
Sure.
So, for those
Sure.
reasons, we have volumes and volumes, and some things to the everyday person may think, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Why do they have that rule? Or why do they?" But we have
Okay.
these rules.
Getting a bit of a interference there.
He's
He's
in.
down in Argentina right now, so we got a bit of a
Uh,
signal issue there. But no, he's absolutely right, guys. You know, the importance of the canal. This, I mean, look, there's no surprise that in a 50-mile by 10-mile area, you had so many military bases because they recognized that the defense of that canal and just the fact that it could not stop operating was so critical, so important. And that's some of the concerns here. Ricky mentioned it earlier. There's a pier in Amador there that only Chinese are allowed there. Well, what do you have on there that they could suddenly stop shipping in the canal literally in minutes, and now you've got a big problem. So there are valid concerns there in a lot of these situations, and you know hopefully they can come to some resolution. But waiting for Andrew to get reconnected again. But there's been a couple of comments there on what we're talking about before, and absolutely, Joe, you got a great point here. China will become the new hegemon imperialist. Basically, yes, and that's that debt diplomacy, which is going out and you know any country in the world that has nothing going on but has a strategic location, a deep sea port, is going to be more than happy to take a loan to build such infrastructure to grow their country. And unfortunately, although it can't be proven, and we'll say allegedly, a lot of the people that are in the leadership positions get taken care of very handsomely.
They're bought off. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so therefore they don't care one way or the other because fail or succeed, they got their money in their pocket, and all is great. So, these things are valid, absolutely. And so yes, that 42% is absolutely critical. It really is. That's a danger marker, guys. That is a red flag that the people of Panama really got to look at and really demand from their government to, if it's not publicized, to put it out there and understand where this
Oh, it's
country
not. I
stands.
follow Panama News like
Well, I did a
anybody
lot of
else,
digging to
and
find this.
I've
This took
never.
I had to go
Yeah.
through quite a few rabbit holes to find this information and go through a
Yeah.
couple of the IMF
Yeah. That's
sites
good,
there.
Willie. That's good.
But
That's
it's nonetheless, it's something that we want to be. You know, we as Panamanians make sure that you're aware of this, of where you stand with this entire you know situation when it comes to Panama, because and China, you may find yourselves one day having a lot more Chinese influence than you ever wanted. Be careful what you wish for. So,
correct.
but that's part of what's been going on here. Okay, here we got
Part of
a.
the message too from Trump.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Let me check something here. Somebody said that they have a black screen. Okay.
Me, it was me. I had a black screen there for a while. That's why I had to get off.
Oh, you did. Okay, okay, okay,
Yeah.
cool. No, okay. But anyhow, so that's where we stand. And let me throw up some more comments here because a lot of people are definitely chiming in. I love this, guys. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
let's go. Let's
for
do it.
everybody
Let's do
tuning
it.
in. But regardless of
Regardless
the
of
circumstances,
circumstance. Go ahead.
yeah. This prohibits Panama from denying access to any nation's ships during peacetime or war. It really does, and it doesn't have to be through a legal maneuvers. You simply sink a ship in the channel there. Nothing's getting through there one way or the other. And when you have somebody that can give that darkness, okay, it looks like Andrew's back. It adds that level of danger there. So let's see, where's Andrew here? Where's our screen? Here it is. All right, Andrew, let's get you back on there. Welcome back, Andrew. Thank you, man. I know you got your
Yeah,
long
no.
distance there.
What I was saying was, and what I was saying was about the regulations in the canal that have been dated back. Some of these regulations are 40 years old.
Right.
Real basic stuff, and it is vital that we keep a tight ship there. That's what keeps the canal healthy. It's fair to all the other ships running through there. It's fair to keep healthy ships going through there to keep the canal open. There's a lot of ships lately. They come through, they lose engine, they lose steering. We cannot afford that in the canal. You have to have your ship in order to transit, and
So
a
now,
lot of
Andrew, let
people
me
don't
ask you.
realize that.
So when it comes to that transit, now I'm the U.S. Navy. We have a ship that's scheduled to transit the canal. How does that whole process work? And is it just like any other normal transit? Does everything get filed the same way, or does the U.S. have some kind of a mechanism in
Well,
place?
Or do they get preference like the Navy
yeah,
ships?
you got to. If people can take a look at it's no secret. Go look at the neutrality treaty and read it, and it's about a page long, and it talks about the Navy has priority. They don't
Correct.
wait in line. They don't pay any exorbitant fees. They go to the front of the line, and I myself has bent over backwards to help the Navy through. I've done it on my own time. I towed through aircraft carriers that were burnt down. I've done the submarines. I've
Yeah,
done the the cruisers, and I've gone out of my way to make sure it's safe and expeditious.
right.
And I'm just going to leave it at that. The things that I've done, and I continue to do it because it's what is in the treaty. It's part of my job, even though I can say that some things have not been um, so pleasant from the other side. They don't want to sign the releases. They don't. The releases have been around for 50 years, and that's just to keep. What is a release? A simple document, you may think, but it isn't. If you have something sticking out the side of your ship, for example, it's fair game to getting hit, and destroyed, and so we say, hey, please sign a
So
release
they
for
don't
that
send you a
because
bill later
it's
on
not
for their
within the
antennas repaired.
confines of the ship.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got you.
it's a
Okay.
liability. That's it. It's
Yeah,
no big deal.
but it's part of the
But it's
process.
what keeps the canal healthy. It's rules and regulations that we follow by the letter.
Got you.
Now, let me ask
Got you.
Ricky. You heard that a ship was delayed or something?
Yeah.
What's the details on that,
The
please?
well, it's not coming from the Pentagon or anything like that. It's just some of the news out there in Panama that the ships were delayed. I mean, they had like an order to go by on a certain day, and they were held back as a
A
message.
Navy ship? A
Yeah,
U.S. Navy ship?
Yeah, I
yeah.
had even heard a rumor somewhere. I thought that it was due to an inspection. They had to do an
On
inspection on it,
inspection, yeah,
and it
something
was
delayed
one of those
the
things like,
transit.
well, let's inspect it for another day or two, and
Right.
but then
Something delayed the inspection. And of course the US has ears everywhere. So they, maybe because this is what part of the story was that they overheard a Chinese official giving a upper canal management official the instructions to hold them back.
Yeah, that's impossible. That's impossible. I'll tell you that right
Okay,
okay,
good.
now.
good.
Good to
And that's
hear.
why we have you
Good to
That's
on. We
hear.
want him to set the
impossible.
record straight on this because
Yeah,
you
it's
know
good
what
to
that
hear because that would be a
You know,
breach of contract in the worst
absolutely.
way.
There's two sides to that coin, and it's the information age that unfortunately
you know,
there's a lot of information out there
yeah.
that's not
Let
true.
me give you the rundown here. Now what could have happened was, let's say there's a steering problem or one of the winches had a problem. You know, that would delay anybody for safety purposes. The Navy ships don't get inspected as other ships get inspected. But one clause in that treaty is the ship has to be fit to go through. It has
Okay,
to be fit, regardless if it's Navy or otherwise.
okay,
Last
okay.
month, the French had a ship with one engine, twin engine ship. It could barely steer, but I got that thing through with the tug attached to the back, and I did everything I could to make it safe, to inspect it, to make it sure it wasn't going to interfere with other traffic, and
Right.
we got the ship through.
Cool. Well, that's
And
French.
that
I mean,
goes
you expect
for
that with those
any
guys.
navy that goes through. They need to be ready uh, to transit in a safe manner. They have to be.
That
If
makes
your
sense. And
winch
so
is
there, so that
broken,
might be have been a possibility then that this wasn't a purposeful delay in that sense as much as it was part of the standard, you know, delay somebody in the event of a transit. But so
Yeah,
interesting
absolutely.
point here that someone else is asking. Sheila's asking here: does the president of Panama want the U.S. to help, and is he American friendly? And to that point, I could certainly. From what we've talked about several times on the show here, he seems to be very U.S. friendly. In fact, I'm not sure, and Ricky, you could probably answer this better. Was he the one that set in motion the closing of the Darien Gap, or was that a U.S. initiative?
Um, sorry,
With
I wasn't
with
paying
Molina,
attention.
I know because he's Ricky's saying hi to his oh yeah,
It's,
over there. So I got you, brother.
yeah.
I got
Sorry.
you.
So the immigration. Sorry, immigration, right?
No, Molina. He's pro U.S. How pro U.S. is he?
Well, I don't know the level of pro U.S., but of the last 4 or 5 presidents, he has been the most pro U.S. president.
Yeah, yeah. And then
And
it
I mean,
sounds
a
like
lot of the initiatives that he's doing. I mean, he's negotiating. I mean, he's working really well with immigration and the U.S. together. They're doing a phenomenal job. Something like 42. They're down to 42% of people crossing the Darien Gap right now.
okay.
But Panama has been footing the bill. So one of the things that I know is coming up soon with Molino is they're going to negotiate who's going to pick up the cost of making that immigration down to nothing, right?
Right.
Because they could do it. So is that what you
Yeah,
were
I think. I mean,
referring to?
so basically, it's not that Molina. I mean, Molina's not anti-American. He's certainly taken actions that are more pro-U.S. than
Well, look
previous
at the
ones. So
airport.
yeah,
U.S. Look at the airport. I mean, Panama and the United States are doing a big effort to show that brotherhood again. Show that
and you know where else it's
we've been
showing is,
together since 3 days after the birth of the country.
well, not only that, Ricky. You
Yeah,
look at currently right now with they've got a united front against Venezuela. And that's certainly
and
something that Panama's
Nicaragua,
taken a
and yeah,
very
and
much
Nicaragua.
center
Yeah,
position on
and
that
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
something else this is brought up. Panama now, you see it on the news. They want to start teaching the history of the United States and Panama relations,
Correct.
because a lot of people in Panama are not taught that, so they don't know that
Nope.
us two nations have been together since day one, walking this United States becoming a world power, learning how to operate a canal, and
See, and that's
Panama
why I
becoming a
constantly say
country and
that
growing to what it is today.
I'm a firm believer that China really does have these plans and these strategies in place because from the moment that they came into Panama, this new China relationship, not the old Taiwan one, but the new one, they've made it a point to try and erase all the memory of the U.S. and the canals with as much as they could. One of them that they want to do, which was going to be a huge insult, was they wanted to put the Chinese embassy right there in Amador, right at the entrance to the canal, so that every ship that came through there saw who was front and center in the canal, and that was China. There, I'm speaking strictly from opinion, but I don't trust those guys as far as I can throw them. And again, going back to some of these numbers here, this may be an opportunity for Panama to rekindle that friendship or reestablish it to the point where maybe some of this stuff can be taken care of and not be so indebted to these guys. But again, going back to Andrew and talking about these regulations, so that may be what's going on here. But to Andrew's knowledge, and again, as port captain, he was the person that received that paperwork and would drive those ships through, and so he would certainly have some pretty good knowledge of
Yeah,
what
and
was
and
scheduled to
I've
do and
seen
why it didn't.
a lot of talk on the about the ports. The ports, who controls the ports? The Panama Canal Authority controls the ports. We tell the ships what ships go in. We assign the pilots, and the canal has always and will always have priority over 40.
So
And the ports, when they want a ship to come out, they know, all right, right now the northbounds are coming. There's a restriction. They wait until the northbounds are finished,
yeah.
and then we send a pilot to go out.
So Andrew, let me ask
And
you.
and
So
I've
Ricky's
never
Ricky's
heard
talking
any
about.
grief from the port.
So Ricky's mentioned that pier out in Amador there that only Chinese personnel are allowed in. What's the story on that? What do you know about that?
Where is that? I'm not aware of that. Yeah.
In the causeway. It's all over the news, all over the social media news today, actually.
Yeah, well, I have 2 boats out there at the marinas, and I don't know which pier you're talking about. They did put together a passenger terminal.
I think
They
is that the one?
constructed that,
Interesting.
but
Well, we have to do a.
Has that open? Has that pier open? Because it was on the
yeah, it's
news
open.
today.
Oh yeah, it's in full swing, and they have mostly. Sometimes you have a commercial ship come in there and use the pier for whatever repairs they need to do. You've had Coast Guard cutters go there. It's more economic, you know.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's just a pier, and it is a passenger pier, but they do have cargo ships that go there once in a while.
You
I
see.
haven't been there. I don't know much about it. That's out of canal waters, so we don't get involved too
Well,
much with that.
just try and sail in one time at high speed and see what happens, and then you'll know whether you're allowed there or not. And figure that out. But no, some
Yeah,
interesting
find out
comments that are
about that
popping in
if you
here.
can.
Talking about why these things happen here, and some interesting kind of geopolitical comments here, which I know Ricky loves that geopolitics. But there was a lot going on. I mean, let's face it. From the mid '90s, till just a few years ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, the U.S. was distracted, and certainly the Middle East and Western Asia
Afghanistan.
played a big role in that, and so we did maybe look away, and in the meantime, China very quietly just kept getting more and more entrenched here. But again, they're almost 50% of Panama's debt is going to China. So there has been a you know has the United States been approached for some of this borrowing, and if not, have they allowed it to happen? Was it really lax? Who knows? And and to Steve's point here, the Senate oversight. There's been a lot of problems going on, and I think we're starting to see that corruption doesn't just play a role in Latin America. We've seen a lot of evidence of that here in the United States recently as well. But nonetheless, it is the situation we're facing now, and we've got a new administration coming in here in the United States, and definitely going to take a different course than what previous administrations have, and what the end result is going to be, who knows. My firm belief again is that the canal zone that we all grew up and loved and remember living in and doing all those fun things, I don't think we'll see that ever again. But I don't know, man. I mean, what do you guys think? What do you guys think in the audience there?
In the
Throw your
audience,
comments out there. What do you guys
yeah.
think is going to end up happening with all this stuff when it all plays out?
Well, for sure, Willie, corruption is going to be reduced.
Yes,
Uh,
agreed.
Educating the population on U.S. Panama relation is on the books now. Perhaps renegotiate the treaties for something that we've been talking about on this show is maybe get rid of the deconcini, but like in Djibouti, where China and the U.S. have bases next door to each other,
Right.
they can negotiate. All right, we'll get rid of this, but we'll take Sherman and Howard or something like that.
Sure.
So these are all the good things that are coming out
Yeah,
of,
of course.
or could come out of this whole episode with Trump's statement.
Yeah, yeah. And Andrew, I think you're back now. I know you keep coming in and out, but what are you hearing in Panama itself? What's the chatter out there? I know you've chatted with a couple of people. I think he might be frozen up again. But it's interesting to see what's going on here, and obviously this is not going to be put to bed anytime soon. In fact, we could probably go on for another couple hours talking about this, and we may want to pick it up again next week and do a little bit more fact checking. Dig up a few more things here, and certainly Andrew, if you could, find out about that mystery, China only pier and those kind of things. But what are you hearing out on the street out there, Andrew, in Panama, as far as this goes, from the Zonian community that you kind of see and hang out with?
Well, I was not in Panama. I've been out of the country for a while, so
That's right. That's
I
right.
haven't heard much, to tell you the truth. Maybe I'll hear some more when I get back.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say, mostly that a lot of the information and uh, a lot of comments are are a little bit misguided, let's say,
Sure.
and and that we have to face the fact, and a proud fact, that Panama has run the canal for 25 years, expanded it, and I'm telling you, things are in order. I've been in management, seeing how we are doing things by the book, keeping the lanes open, keeping, there's some issues with water. We're going to work on that.
But you've had those
But
issues since we were down in the zone. I mean, the
Yeah,
water
and
issues existed in
also
the '60s and '70s too. Let's not
correct,
kid
and also
ourselves.
I don't think that they're questioning the operations
Yeah.
themselves. I
No,
think
and
that's the
listen,
rhetoric. I think that's the and the fees. I think that's just the
I mean,
rhetoric.
they built a whole new massive set of locks, which means the canal was growing, not
yeah,
not
and that
shrinking. So
Well, here's the deal
that's a
with
game
that too on
changer.
the
That
breach of contract. Sorry for interrupt. Another deal with that I heard about the breach of contract was that the U.S. had told Panama, do not do the third set of locks without expanding the water because you can put the canal at risk. And it went in one ear and out the other. So apparently that was like the first strike on breach of contract.
okay, interesting, interesting.
well,
Well,
And now they're
I think
doing
they
the
had plans
expansion.
for it. They
The
had plans
plans were
for that
done by the Corps of
secondary Rio
Engineers.
Indio thing, and
And this came from
unfortunately,
Jaime
it
Massaud,
goes
by the way.
through.
yeah, Jaime is very well connected. He
He's
knows a
well. I
lot.
mean, he does his
He
research.
knows his
Yeah, that
research and his
the
history.
Corps of Engineers in 1999 gave them the plans and said, "This is how you expand. If you're going to do expand the if you're going to expand the canal, you're going to need more water. Blah blah blah. Here's the lock. Here's the plans from the
Well, maybe
Corps of
that's why they use those water reservoirs instead. To make up for that loss of water that you're going to
Correct.
experience
I
from
mean, Andrew would probably know more about that.
right.
But that's what I heard was the first strike on the breach of contract of the neutrality treaty.
Interesting, interesting. Well, definitely, guys. This has been a great show.
Well, what about this comment from Trump?
Which one?
Billions of dollars,
You kind of cut out there. Say it again.
the billions of dollars in repairs. Where did that come
That
from?
was what, and we've talked about it on this show. From like 1980 through 1999, maybe I got the years wrong. There was a huge investment to turn the canal over with the top technology and everything repair, best valves, best everything. And we've talked about that on this show
Yeah.
when we go over the spillway stories.
Sure. Sure.
So that's what he was talking about.
Yeah. No. You know what? Listen.
Yeah,
I
but that's
think I think it goes back to that whole art of the deal. You use a lot of rhetoric to get yourself into a position of strength to negotiate.
Correct. Yeah.
And
And a lot of
then
Panamanian
Molino
politicians
says,
know
"No,
that too.
we're not going to give you that. We'll do this, this, and this." And Trump's like, "Okay, well, that's originally what they wanted anyway, so everybody's happy."
Yeah.
Trump
The
got what he
three top
wanted.
guys I
Molino
follow,
got what
Willie.
he wanted and pushed back,
Yeah.
and it's happy for everybody. So
Yeah. No.
fingers
Yeah.
crossed, guys, that it does resolve itself. Again, regardless of whether we end up going back to the canal zone or not, it's still something that I don't think any of us here are rooting against. Okay, we
Of
want
course
Panama
not.
to succeed, and we all of us are. Listen, when that new canal, those locks opened up, I think I can speak for a lot of people here that we were proud of it. As growing up in that community, it was a great accomplishment that we've helped this country grow and become a big prosperous nation now. And so hopefully that's going to continue on here. We'll see. Maisie brings up another great point here: intervene if threatened. This could include scenarios as a government, aligning with a foreign adversary, which
Yes.
again is kind of the concern here. And we've
That's
seen that
right.
happen. We've seen that happen in a lot of places where all of a sudden, a new government comes in and they say, "Hey, wait a minute, we're now pro this and against that," and that might be the pretext in it itself for these things to happen. So who knows, guys? We'll see what happens here, but nonetheless, it was great to at least set the record straight here and get some things. I was really wanted Andrew to come on and talk about, what's really been going on with those rumors about the Navy ships and delays. So now you guys know that stuff isn't set up that way, that the United States Navy does in fact get priority, and they're not being overcharged on this. So hopefully a happy resolution comes out here that's favorable to Panama and the United States. You know,
Yes. Yes.
so. But Andrew,
Yeah.
listen, I know you've got stuff going on here. Listen, real quick, fill us in on what's going to be coming up next year, because I know we're working on having you, Jim Duffus on. Um, we got a guy from Marine Traffic Control, and I always forget the name. I'm so embarrassed. I always forget the name here, but I'll tell you who it is right now because I spoke to him recently. It is hold on. Also, David Cohen, who's a tugboat captain. So we're really going to cover an Atlantic side transit through the Gatun locks. Gosh, where is he on here? I have his name. Anyway, so is somebody from Marine Traffic Control, obviously Andrew Eftimitis captaining of the ship, David Cohen captaining the tugboat, and then Jim Duffus on the locks, and all of these telling us that entire story of doing that canal transit. So, Andrew, I'm excited for that. Also, if you want to chat a little bit about your project you got working on with the Canal Zone historian Dave Dahlstrom, well, what's that all
Oh
about,
yeah,
man?
that's going to be a big event. Um, did you get my email, by the way?
I did not. I meant to send you. I checked it again. It never arrived. So we'll try and get that resent here
Okay,
so I
I'll
can
have
get
to
to work
send
on
that
it.
again. Anyways,
Yeah.
we're going to be one of a kind talking about history here and history of the Pacific area specifically. We're going to be doing an hour and a half trip through the from Flamenco, approaching the new set of locks under the bridge along the causeway, and it is such a magnificent job that David Dahlstrom did to put that together. A lot of good information that I never even imagined about, and that's
Yeah.
going to be called the Bay and Harbor History Tour, and it's
Nice.
going to have interaction, and hopefully Willie will help us out with some graphics,
Yeah.
and we'll be able to do some. It'll be an audio visual tour
Sure.
aboard the Serenity, where we're going to be able to showcase the history of the Pacific side.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. And by the way, I did get that email,
For
Andrew.
the Pacific area of the canal. We're going to hit a lot of topics in about an hour and a half. So it should be it's going to be one of a kind situation, and it should be fun.
Yeah, no, and hopefully you'll have it up and running by the time we get to go down next year for the Canal Zone reunion for 2026 when our class of '86 and all those guys will be down there. But I did get your email, by the way, on that, so thank you so much. I'll definitely get to work on that and see if we can't put together some really cool stuff. But yeah, so listen, guys, again, a really awesome show. Andrew, I know you're cut out there, and I think you're heading home. Andrew's down with his wife, visiting family down in Argentina, visiting his wife's family in Argentina. So enjoy your stay down there. I don't know if you can hear us or not, but nope, he just jumped off again. But anyway, Andrew, I hope you have a happy new year. In the meantime, though, listen, guys, a really fantastic show. Great comments out there, great participation. If we didn't get to everybody's comments, apologies. We had a lot. This is, in spite of our technical glitches, which we really want to try and get those fixed. But nonetheless, appreciate you guys' patience and jumping on and sharing it with us. But we shall see. Yes, and absolutely, Vern. Thank you for debunking those rumors. Always good to have a voice there, somebody that we know, one of our own there, that's able to tell us that. Dave, happy birthday to you, man. Appreciate you joining us. Again, guys, remember on YouTube especially, like and subscribe. The more people we have subscribed to the channel, the more the algorithm will start spreading it out. So other people that view Canal's own content will start seeing our notifications and start joining us on the show. Jessica, good to see you on here. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was we learned a lot from this, and that's the thing here. One of the things, if you've seen, and you'll see a lot of our past shows, and we've had some amazing people on. We've had, like I said, Al Sprague was on one time. We had Coach Holland, Coach Bales, and Coach Houston on one time. Really fun talking about Canal Zone football. So we've
It's
had some
been our
some
best
really.
show.
It was a fantastic show. We've had George Call with some rock and roll history and a lot of cool stuff on here. So go back and watch those other shows.
Alex
And
Reyes,
yeah, Alex Reyes comes on a
Reina
lot. He's got
Arroyo.
some
We've got
good
some
stuff
good
here. So
people on.
it was
Jerry
a lot of fun.
Curtis,
Yeah,
Paul
Steve, appreciate
Myers,
you joining us. It was a lot of fun. I saw
Ralphie Furlong. No, sorry.
no, no, it's all good. But no, Steve joined. He commented on a posting in one of the Zonian channels on Facebook, several months ago, and I was like, oh my God, Mr. Ranson, I hadn't seen him since BHS. It was great to see him on there again. So we've connected. So thank you for joining our show and thank you for contributing with your comments. Loved having that on there. And yes, Viva Panama, Jessica, Panama Bello, of course, absolutely, guys. You know what? It really is. We grew up in a zone, but Panama was also near and dear to us. It was part of the love that we had. The beaches, some amazing beaches down there. great food. It's just a wonderful, wonderful country, and hopefully we can. Again, we won't get that canal zone back, but we can at least have a great America-Panama relationship like it used to be, because we're brothers, or what do you want to call it, a parental child relationship, whatever it is. It's nonetheless, it
Oh,
is a
we're
relationship
tied
that we should
together.
cherish,
Yeah,
and
we are tied together, and we are shared to this show. Definitely does. We're big promoters of the brotherhood between our two nations. That's what this
yes,
show's all about.
absolutely. And so, and that's a great way to close this out, is Happy New Year. And Jim, I will be reaching out so we can start working on that Gatun transit show, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about how we got to ship through there, all the moving parts, all the people involved to get it from out in the ocean through those narrow little locks, and on its way to the next ocean. So that was really cool. Dave, I spent as much time in Las Cumbres as I did in Ancon. Right on, yeah, Las Cumbres people. That seemed to be a place that a lot of Americans ended up in. It was in Las Cumbres. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was good stuff. So anyhow, guys, again, thank you everybody for joining us. We had an absolute blast as usual. Always fun to get together with our Zonian crowd there. So love you guys, but. See, I got to switch that back. I almost made that mistake again. I queued that up, and the last time we did that, it cuts us out because I forgot to bring us into the scene here. So we did this last time, and we're talking away about this picture that I'm about to pull up again. And then when I watched the show afterwards, we were nowhere to be found because I didn't add us to the screen here. So let me go ahead and redo that here. This is again, guys, why I need a producer to help us out with the show. But you
We
know,
do. We do. We
now,
do.
now here it is. So now you can see, what we're talking about here. Very iconic picture. This came out right after the whole treaty thing, and there's some names on there. Two of them, their dads were commanding officers of Clayton and Howard, I believe.
I think Joe Lure's in that picture. Who's in the?
Yes,
he's
yes,
in-
he is.
Yes,
Right
he
next to
is.
Ramon.
He was one of the general's sons,
There it is. Yeah. So that picture in itself was.
and he's with us tonight. Right on,
Yeah,
Joe.
that's so cool. There you go, Joe. So now you got on the show, both in the chat and on the screen there. So, but nonetheless, guys, again, ran a little bit long, but we love having you guys out here joining us. So, thank you again for everything. By the way, guys, we're so caught up on this whole moment here. Happy New Year, everybody. It's coming up here.
New
So
Year's,
by
Merry
the time we
Christmas,
see you guys
everybody.
again, it's going to be 2025, a whole new year. So we really, really enjoyed this. I'm going to try and work on something at the beginning of next year, maybe like a outtakes or funny best of kind of show, because we got a year of shows almost now, and had a lot of fun
48
things there.
shows, Willie. 48.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So anyhow, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Have an awesome weekend as usual. Love having you guys on here. Ricky, man, get us out of here, dude.
Thank you, everybody. We had great participation. Lots and lots of people. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next week, same time. We love you very, very, very much.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Ricky. Have yourself an awesome weekend.
too,
Again,
hermano.
thanks for everything you do here. Thanks for bringing that Panama connection on here. It really, really does add a lot to the show. And again, everybody in the audience, thank you for the comments. Thank you for joining us and chiming in. Love you guys. Have an awesome weekend, and Happy New Year, everybody. And here's our favorite scene right here. Look at that. What an iconic view, huh?
Lord knows that picture.
Ah,
He was a
best,
center for
man.
me.
Fantastic. Take care, guys.